The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Here at Spaced Out Radio, we are about to take you higher. Broadcasting from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to you listening around the world. This is Spaced Out Sunday with host Tessa N Thomas. You can follow Tessa on our Facebook page at Spaced Out Radio, on Twitter at Tessa TNT, and you can subscribe to her YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for the archive. But we break on command 'cause women rule the world. Buckle up, space travelers. Let the countdown begin.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time to go for a ride with host Tessa N Thomas.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, August 26th, Monday, August 27th for those of you on the East Coast and beyond. And this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a rockin' week, an awesome day, and an even better evening. I am your host, Tessa TNT, and I am live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 1,000 strong nightly around the world on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. Don't forget to head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the encounter online dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. Tonight, I have a surprise for all of you guys. I hope you guys weren't expecting Psychic Sunday, as for the third weekend in a row, our psychic backed out on us. This time it was because of a toothache. So I'm kind of perturbed on that realm and thinking, I don't even know if I want to deal with psychics anymore if it's going to be like this, but maybe it's just a bad wave in the ocean and we can get over it and bring some in, because I really, really do enjoy Psychic Sundays, and I love you guys getting your free readings and hearing your voices on the station. But instead of doing Psychic Sundays, we have a few friends that we're bringing in. We have Mr. Robert White from Australia. Say hello, Robert.
Hello, people. Hello, everyone in the chat room. Hello, everyone on the radios.
We also have Mr. Jason Mathis from Arizona.
Hello, how are you?
And then we have my little sister, Amanda Thomas, who is very into the conspiracy realm. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
It's so good to have you guys on, and I'm so glad that we could put this together so last minute, and I was racking my brain like, what can we do? So let's talk about hauntings and conspiracies and everything in between. we'll start with Robert. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on to Jason and then Amanda.
Well, for those that don't know me, I work with crystals. I cut and polish them. I've been recently putting up information about what they can do in a metaphysical stance. I make jewelry. I've been dabbling with a new pendulum I got the other week, and that's been giving some pretty good answers to questions that I posed to it. So that's basically it for what I do at the moment. I'm sure there'll be more things coming out in the near future. So yeah, that's me.
And Jason?
Hello, I'm totally multitasking. I've been doing that for hours, actually, getting prepared for tonight.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I grew up in Arizona. I was born in Detroit, but I grew up out here. And basically stumbled into the world of UFOs and later on I don't like the term conspiracy, but that's what it is. A friend of mine actually introduced me to that book, Behold a Pale Horse, in the early 90s. And it was on and off from there. And then last week I mentioned the roommate I had who was all into all sorts of things, witchcraft and the pendulums and that sort of thing. And he's the one that really got into the conspiratorial part about it, telling me. So, at first I thought he was kind of nuts, but when I looked up things, it turned out to be true because, the declassified documents and other things that have been released.
Awesome. And Amanda?
Hi. So I used to be very straight-laced and wouldn't entertain any outside perspectives, and I had this roommate living with me who was pretty open-minded and introduced me to a documentary and said, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. I'm not going to, give you anything. Just want you to watch it, and afterwards, if you want to talk about it, I'm here. And the documentary was Loose Change. It really just blew my mind and changed my perspective on so many things and got me interested into the conspiracy world, and I dove deep into that pool and just have been fascinated with the connections and things of that nature.
It's awesome. I'm so happy to have you guys here, and I'm so glad you could be here, Amanda. I know you had things that were trying to get in the way, but I'm so grateful to have you because we always have fun with this show and learn a lot of things and share a lot of things, and so I'm just stoked to have you guys all here. So we have both Robert and Amanda from Arizona. I'm sorry, Robert's from Australia, Jason and Amanda from Arizona. I know what the conspiracy theories and hauntings and such in our area is, but I'm very curious to hear what is going on the other side of the world. Robert, can you fill us in on that?
Well, I've been just recently informed a few days back by a psychic I know here in town. She actually works at the same place I used to work at, and she's been saying that there's been a lot more activity over the last couple of months, which should be good for that world's greatest ghost hunt. But she has had to do a lot of clearings just recently. She says that she's been doing at least one a week, so that's rather high, according to her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, apart from that, the mountain was just on fire, as I'm sure people have seen on the photos I put up on my website on Facebook. Other than that, there hasn't been a great deal going on. Yeah, that's about it.
So,
at the moment.
Well, as far as hauntings, I can see that, and it is the same over here. Like, we've had a drastic increase in paranormal activity and cases that we're covering, because for the longest time we were barely getting any calls, and now all of a sudden it seems like people are coming from everywhere and wanting us, and we have to book them out in advance because we have so many needing help, and it makes me wonder, is the veil thinning and is something about to happen? But that's going along the lines of hauntings and the veil, but what about conspiracies? Do you guys not have conspiracies or conspiracy theories over there on the other side of the road?
Well, I know that the politicians down here, and I know you don't like talking about politicians, but they've just had a major coup and kicked the person that was in charge as Prime Minister out, and the person that was trying to initiate the coup, he didn't get in at all. So there's a brand new Prime Minister down here, and it's all because this one guy wanted the other guy out. So if that's considered a conspiracy, I don't know. But,
yeah.
Bit of backstabbing going on in Canberra.
Yeah, it happens, but sometimes it's for the greater good, you know? Who knows what that person was, and, you know, being that there's somebody else going in instead of the person that started the coup, maybe there was something wrong with that person as well. A lot of times there is, but do you feel like it's a change for the better?
I believe so, yeah, because this other guy, Scott Morrison, they call him ScoMo. He's not a banker as far as I know, so he might actually listen to people. Because the other guy, he wasn't listening to anybody. He was just doing whatever he wanted. So it might be a better leadership for now until next year when the elections are held. I hope.
Yeah. Okay, so we covered hauntings and we covered conspiracy theories. What about the in-between? You were saying earlier you work with stones, and I get to see those quite often on the after party from Skype, and they're so pretty, like all these different stones that you have, and I know you have this detailed knowledge of them and what exactly they do for people. And I know you just recently went on a geode hunt. Yeah,
we were looking for garnets out about 68 kilometres from where we are situated in Rockhampton. So it's out past where they get the thunder eggs and before where they get the sapphires. And yeah, it was rather disappointing, really. There were no really noticeable garnets in the area. A lot of people went along. Like we had a group of about 30 people that went along, and not very many people got anything.
Yeah, that's terrible. Man, I was hoping you guys would get a lot more.
So did we.
Where are these blasted garnets? Let's find them and create them. All right, Jason. What's been going on in your life? Anything awesome, amazing, or out of this world? And what conspiracy theory do you have on the top of your head at this moment?
Well, the one I pulled. I don't know if you want to get into it right now because I don't know how you want to dedicate our time to each of these little topics. But I threw some major points together about the RFK assassination, basically, because that's one that's not really talked about too much. JFK always takes the limelight in that one. Mm-hmm. And there was a filmmaker by the name of Ted Chirac in the mid-'70s who did a film called The Second Gun. And basically, my memory serves, there was 10 bullets that were found in the pantry, but Sirhan's gun only held 8. And according to, I think his name was Don Schulman, a newspaper reporter, he witnessed security guard Eugene Thane Caesar firing his weapon, and he was the one standing directly behind Kennedy. And according to the coroner report, Kennedy had a fatal wound on his right ear, and it was fired from 1 to 3 inches behind him. And Ted Chirac interviewing Eugene Thane Caesar himself, Caesar admits of having gunpowder on his face, but he says that Sirhan was 3 to 6 feet away from him. So how can gunpowder travel that far?
Yeah.
So his account, I have clips and everything that I sent you, and if you want to go through those later, we can. They're kind of lengthy, but it gives the listeners and people who aren't really familiar with the RFK assassination a good insight. You know, you got the eyewitnesses, you have the maitre d's eyewitness account being interviewed by Ted Chirac, and also there's a little intro by Mae Brussels because he was a guest on Mae Brussels' show as well. So,
Yeah,
I've been
I'm
really
excited.
fascinated with that topic as well, actually. I've recently saw the documentary that they put out on RFK and that they released on Netflix, and they were talking about how one of the Secret Service members had actually disarmed Sirhan Sirhan by slamming his hand against the prep table in the kitchen, yet even after that happened, that there were additional shots that were fired.
right.
So-
Well, that was the maitre d'. That was the maitre d' who was slamming the gun down on the steam table because you actually see it in the second film or the second gun film. He's describing it right there, and he said as he was slamming Sirhan's hand on the table for him to release the weapon, he was firing at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to play the first one, you can. It's up to you. I mean, if there's no objections, first clip. It's the Mae Brussels article. It's an article out of I think the Zodiac Press at the time.
Okay, well, we can do that. This is a free-flowing show. I
And
like
then
to
we
fly
can
by
dis-
the seat of my pants, and so, you know, whatever
And then-
feels right
and then
at
we
the
can
time,
discuss-
we'll do that.
And then we can discuss the points afterwards, I think, and then maybe get some audience participation going.
Okay, I'm going to play this clip, and I'm going to turn up my headphones. Did you guys, were you able to hear the intro?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'll just turn this up, and I'll put the mic on, or the headphones on the mic, because I know last time you couldn't hear it, but I think I had it turned down so far you couldn't hear it. So we're going to go with clip number 1.
Okay.
We're going into our show, but recently there were 2 news items on Zodiac Press about Ted Chirac, and I want to read them to you. One was June the 9th. I read it on KLRB at the time it came out. It said, a leading investigator probing the murder of Senator Robert Kennedy claims he has cracked the case regarding the missing second gun, allegedly involved in the 6-date assassination. Former broadcast journalist Ted Chirac says he is currently negotiating to purchase the so-called second gun, which has been missing for nearly 7 years. Chirac says and other investigators have alleged for years that a gun other than Sirhan's was also fired in the Ambassador Hotel pantry when Senator Kennedy was assassinated. Private investigators have learned that a .22 caliber pistol, almost identical to Sirhan's, was owned by a security guard who was standing directly behind Senator Kennedy when Kennedy was shot. They have suggested the guard's weapon may have been fired. The failed shot was struck Kennedy. Shortly after the assassination, however, the guard's gun was reportedly stolen. As a result, it has never been available for ballistic tests. I'll go on. There's more to the Zodiac News, and I won't read the whole thing because Ted is here to talk to you today. He's
Yeah, that's so that was the intro basically, and so if there's any response or questions on that, it was just a short little clip there. But going on to, if we want to go on to the second one, we can, because that's a little more meat in it, and it's an eyewitness account. This is the newsman's account of seeing Eugene Dane Caesar shooting his weapon and firing it.
Okay, so we're going to clip number 2.
Even Kennedy's press secretary, Frank Mankiewicz, said that Kennedy had been shot twice, and the press quoted Mankiewicz until the autopsy proved him wrong. On the third item, a guard or guards firing back, Chirac had to find Don Schulman and interview him.
I was in the pantry following the senator. He stopped and shook hands with several people and started to progress again. We were packed in there like sardines. There were lights and cameras and people and a lot of excitement. The senator had just finished shaking hands with someone, and another man, I think it was the maitre d', walked up and took his hand. As we were slowly pushed forward, another man stepped out, and he shot Just then the guard who was standing behind Kennedy took out his gun, and he fired also. The next thing I knew is that Kennedy was shot 3 times.
Now, how far was Sirhan from Senator Kennedy at the time?
I would say approximately from 3 to 6 feet.
Where was this guard who was firing his gun?
He was standing directly to the side and back of Kennedy.
On what side?
He was standing on the right-hand side.
Now, Dawn, did you tell this story to any police authorities?
I told the story to several different people, including several police authorities. Right after it happened, I insisted the senator was shot 3 times. I was told by the police...
Which police?
Well, I was told by the FBI that I was told by the FBI, my own news people, that I was mistaken, that I was wrong. The senator was only shot twice.
Now, when you say your own news people, who do you mean?
Well, I was on the air with Jerry Dunphy. Also, I did a tape recording with Jeff Brent. And several people I told. In fact, I also told them that the guard pulled out the gun. And everyone told me that in the confusion, I didn't see what I saw. Well, I didn't see everything that happened that night because of the blinding lights and the people screaming. But the things that I did see, I'm sure about. And that is Kennedy being shot 3 times. The guard definitely pulled out his gun and fired.
Now, when you say Jeff Brent, he is with the Continental News Service. When did he interview you?
Well, right after the assassination attempt and all the confusion, I fought my way out of the pantry, and I was heading towards a telephone to call CBS News. Before I picked up the phone, Jeff Brent, who grabbed me and asked me right on the spot exactly what I had seen then, fresh in my mind.
I was about 6 people behind the senator. I heard about 6 or 7 shots in succession. Now, is this the security guard firing back?
Yes,
the man who stepped out fired 3 times at Kennedy, hit him all 3 times, and the security guards then fired back.
Then the tape we played is authentic.
It is. It was given well, I'd say 10 to 15 minutes after all the incidents of the evening.
Alrighty, that was clip number 2.
Yeah.
Jason?
So you take that clip, and if you take his testimony, and then the words of the coroner, I think any jury in America would put 2 and 2 together. Now, we have to say allegedly, because obviously Caesar was never charged. But his comments are very interesting later on in the film when Chirac interviews him, because he had deep animosity and dislike for the Kennedys. And when we get into that part, I kind of want to do a disclaimer, because the audience has to remember this was the 70s. I mean, actually the 60s that happened. So, he being Eugene had the thoughts of black against white, that old rep. He thought a race war would be coming to America, and kind of like echoing a Charles Manson thing in a way. And then you have to think, so this guy was hired to be right there guarding the president, and he was a plumber by trade. I forget who he worked for. It escapes me off one of the big corporations, but he moonlighted as a security officer. And as the story goes, he got a call at late in the evening around 6 o'clock, and was told that he was going to be going to guard the president in a couple hours. So he had really no idea he was going to go and do it. At least that's what he said, and some of what Mae Russell had researched in some of the interviews and stuff. So, but I have to go back in my notes for the 3rd clip to remember what it is. The next clip is the coroner report in the interview with the maitre d' and the position of Sirhan in relation to Kennedy, because he was on the right side and kind of in front of Kennedy, and there was no way that he could fire his weapon and hit him in the back of the head.
I'm Dr. Thomas T. Noguchi, the Chief Los Angeles County Medical Examiner and Coroner. Dr. Noguchi, how many gunshot wounds did Senator Kennedy sustain?
The autopsy findings revealed that there were 3 gunshot wounds.
A 4th shot passed harmlessly through the right shoulder pad of the senator's jacket. These 4 shots raised a problem which could not be solved by Prosecutor David Fitz without creating a serious discrepancy in the actual testimony.
Former Ambassador Hotel Assistant Maitre d' Carl Euchre, who was leading Kennedy and stopped Sirhan, was the star witness.
David Fitz has told the jury that you reacted after the 4th shot.
No, I don't believe that. You know, from the first time, right, the police investigated it, I said after the 2nd shot, I know it.
Are we to believe the prosecutor, who was not in the pantry, or the prosecution's own star witness?
Sirhan then was shooting blindly after the 2nd shot.
Oh, yes, blindly, yes. He just was pulling the trigger. I even could feel when his hand was moving and pulling him, but he didn't see anything anymore where he was shooting because I had him complete covered with my, with the headlight.
How far was Senator Robert Kennedy from Sirhan and yourself, Carl?
Kennedy was as far as I can reach my left hand here when I had his hand, and he had his hand like this when I had his hand, you know. So it was quite away from Sirhan. And Sirhan was right in front of me, right in front of the steam table and between me.
In
front, yeah. I had him right in front of me. I didn't let him pass me. I had my left foot on his knees, and I pushed him over. And
how far would the gun muzzle be from Senator Kennedy's head?
About 1.5 feet, I would say 1.5 feet, 2 feet.
Dr. Noguchi, were you able to determine how far the gun muzzle was from Senator Kennedy's head?
One gunshot wound was found behind the right ear, and there were abundance of a powder deposit on the edge of the right ear, and after test firing the similar weapon, we came to conclusion that the muzzle distance would be a 1 inch from the right ear edge and no more than 3 inches.
How did your office resolve some of the discrepancies in that trial between the medical reports, for instance, that Kennedy was killed by a gun 1 inch from him, and the eyewitness reports of Sirhan's position 3 feet away?
Oh, I don't think there were any major discrepancies. Certainly the jury didn't think so.
All right,
Yeah.
so clip number 3.
Yeah, that last comment about the fellow about talking about how the jury didn't think there was a discrepancy. Oh, I think that's a big discrepancy. And these things are just glossed over. You know, the news guy's eyewitness account and testimony, and then people telling him that he's wrong. I mean, you have to wonder, you know, why, first off. And forgive me because we're kind of rushing through it. I'm just hitting the highlights of the Robert Kennedy assassination because there is so much to it. You know, there's just as with anything. So kind of giving the Reader's Digest version. But the next clip, Thane Caesar himself admits to having gunpowder in his face and seeing a flash from the muzzle of a weapon. How can you get gunpowder on your face from 3 to 6 feet away if Sirhan killed Kennedy? Like I said in the previous clip, the coroner stated how close the weapon was, held behind the back of the right ear of Kennedy's head.
All right, so
if you want to.
Clip number 4, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
To develop further his alternate theory of the assassination, Chirac needed to establish at least one other gun in the pantry besides Sirhan's. On a hunch, he asked Carl Euchre.
Did you see any security guards in that kitchen pantry?
There was a security man somewhere behind me. I don't know how far away from me.
On what side?
Somewhere around, right on the left side, you know, right behind Kennedy, somewhere around there.
I see. Well, that would be Thane Eugene Caesar, according to an official police diagram.
A few uniformed armed guards were hired by the Ambassador Hotel. One of these guards, Thane Eugene Caesar, a plumber by trade, moonlighting out of the Ace Guard Service, tells about the strange premonition of his colleague, Jack Merritt.
At 8:30, 8:45, I remember it as long as I live. I was standing at the main door of the ballroom. Jack looks at me and he says, I got a funny feeling there's going to be big trouble here tonight. And I looked at him and I says, why? He says, I just got that feeling. And I just laughed it off as a joke. But maybe he knew something I didn't.
By his own account, recorded in 1969 by Ted Chirac, Caesar is now entering the pantry at Kennedy's side.
For some reason, I don't know why, I had a hold of his arm, under his elbow here.
Which arm?
Would be his right arm. And with my left hand, and I was pushing people with my right, because there was a lot. There was, I would say, way over 100 people in the kitchen area. Who knows how many. And just as we reached the edge of the steam tables, the little Spanish busboy was standing there, and Bobby turned his head at an angle.
Juan Romero.
Right, to reach over, and he started to shake hands with him. And when he did, that's when the shots were fired. And the thing I saw first wasn't so much the noise, but with the flash. I got powder in my eyes from the flash. And I was a little behind Bobby, so I would say I was about 3 feet from the flash, because I looked up and seen a red gun flash. And like I said, I got a little bit of powder in my eyes.
Then Chirac heard what he had hoped to hear.
When the shots were fired, when I reached for my gun, and this one I got knocked down.
Did you get your gun out of your holster?
Yeah, but it didn't do no good because I'm on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, I got back up, and I had my gun out, but they already had him restrained.
Did you see other guys pull their guns after you pulled your gun that time?
After we went out through the swinging doors, yeah, there was 3 of us had our guns out.
What about in the kitchen?
No, I didn't see anybody else pull their guns in the kitchen area.
Except yourself?
Except for myself.
And you pulled it the instant you saw them?
When I seen the flashes and the gun go off, I pulled it, but I got knocked down.
How far did you have it out?
Oh, I had it out of my holster. I had it in my hand.
In conflicting accounts to the police, the FBI, and the district attorney, Caesar said that he pulled his gun after getting up from the floor. Los Angeles Times reporter Dave Smith remarked that no effort was made to determine whether those variances arose from Caesar's effort to conceal something.
Excuse me. I was taking a drag off my cigarette and you caught me there.
No worries.
I could barely hear that clip, so it was kind of hard to follow. But so he pretty much told everything but shooting Kennedy. So I don't know what, Amanda, do you have any comments or anything about, gunpowder on his face? And, here the killer, Sirhan's supposed to be 3 to 6 feet away?
Well, I mean, I just don't see, especially looking at the layout of the room, how that would even be a possibility. I mean, even in an enclosed space, I just feel like that level, for him to describe it blowing into his face, I just feel like that is not really a possibility.
Right. I mean, I would assume, now I've never, well, I don't want to say never. When I've fired weapons, which have been very few and far between, you can smell that gunpowder coming back at you.
Mm-hmm.
And, and anybody within, standing, I'm no expert, so maybe I don't know what the heck I'm talking about, but I know when you fire a gun, you get some sort of powder on you, or if you're near enough to have it come in contact with you at least.
Yeah, and when you fire a gun, they do the residuals on your hand. Had he been standing in front of the gun, but to the side, to the left or the right, I could see some sort of gunpowder splatter, but weren't you saying that he was behind him?
Yeah, he was directly behind him and to the right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Man.
So, and it's, and this last clip, he kind of goes off the chain, Eugene Caesar does, on his political views. And I think, I forget who, but they were saying that there were no right-wingers in the pantry that day. Well, I guess at the time, Caesar would have been considered as an extreme right-winger. So if you want to play that one, and then we can wrap up this little segment and kind of get on. I was just, like I said, doing a Reader's Digest version of this whole thing.
Less than 3 months after Houghton's unsuccessful search for a right-winger in the pantry, security guard Thane Eugene Caesar was telling reporter Ted Chirac,
I definitely wouldn't have voted for Bobby Kennedy because he had the same ideas as John did, and I think John sold the country down the road. He gave it to the commies, he gave it to whoever else he wanted to, he literally gave it to the minority.
Again, there are variances between Caesar's answers to the DA and to Chirac.
I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with that. I was going down there just for the money.
Now, who did you vote for in November?
Wallace.
Pardon me?
George Wallace.
Have you worked actively into the third party?
I did over in Simi when I lived in Simi Valley. I worked for George Wallace Party.
Prior to June the 5th?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do exactly?
Oh, I pass handbills and get donations. That's not too much. I didn't have too much time to put into it, but I did put a little bit of time in it.
Did he admit to you that he had worked for George Wallace in 1968?
No. He gave $3, I think, to somebody that he knew that was working for Wallace's campaign. That was the extent of his involvement.
The people in Europe, I don't care where you go, hate our guts.
They do?
They hate us. They'd like to stick a knife in our back. And want to know why? Because they're tired of us giving them everything. They've had it crammed down their throat for so many years. It's just like the black man. The black man now, for the last 4 to 8 years, has been cramming this integrated idea down our throat, and so you've learned to hate them. And one of these days, at the rate they're going, there's going to be civil war in this country. It's going to be the white against the black, and the only thing I'd say is the black will never win. I mean, me as an individual, I'm fed up. And I know a lot of people that I work with have the same feeling. It's just that we ain't had it shoved down our throat enough, but one of these days it's going to be shoved too far, and then we're going to fight back. First of all, I think the white man's going to try and do it with his voting power. And if they can't do it by getting the right person to straighten the thing out, then he's going to take it in his own hands. I can't see any other way to go.
The long series of coincidences in which armed guard Thane Eugene Caesar was involved was never made public, much less explained. At his request, Caesar was never asked to take the witness stand.
I told him if it's all possible, I just not be involved.
If a man like Caesar could pull his gun next to Kennedy, and if a man like Houghton knew nothing about it, or did know, but attached no importance to it, then for all we know, there could have been any number of guns in the pantry. To this day, we would know nothing about it, and probably will never know.
So, there you go. I mean, he was pretty extreme in his views. Didn't like the Kennedys. I mean, the Kennedys, they helped bring along, the civil rights thing and everything. And so I think there was motive. It's pretty clear.
I think it's kind of funny. It really does sound like the rhetoric that, maybe not as blatant, but I really feel like it's the same agenda that's being pushed today. It's like they've been trying to push it for so long, and this race war and stuff like that, and move us back out of the progress that we've made, and it's just so frustrating.
Well, that's a problem. That's what's happened, I think, in America. We've gone backwards in everything. While we've technologically advanced, we've reverted to suppression of free speech. In the early 2000s, free speech zones started popping up. I mean, all of America is a free speech zone. There's so much, and when people don't see that it's the same stuff for since Kennedy died. I mean, this stuff is. We just had another shooting, didn't we? Just recently somewhere. I can't
today,
keep up anymore.
It's Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, at the mall.
Mm-hmm. It was during a video game competition, and 2 people passed away and 18 others were injured. But yeah, just today.
And then when you get into the research and the work of Jim Keith, well, that goes. Now you're going further down the rabbit hole because he did some research and reports on Dr. Jose Delgado, and he was the inventor of several, I'll say, machines. One was called the stimuloceiver, where electrodes were implanted in the base of the person's skull in the cerebellum area, and basically he could turn on and off human emotions at will. And there's famous footage of him doing the same thing to a bull. Hooked up electrodes to a bull, pushed a button, the bull would stop, push another button, bull would charge him. He could control that bull at will. So if they were doing that, and if he perfected that in the 50s and 60s, imagine what they are doing now, remotely.
Right. I feel the same way with all the research that came out on MK Ultra. Like if they, and also, I was recently at my grandparents' house, and my grandfather had a book about the Philadelphia experiment, and I think, Jesus,
that's crazy.
If this was possible way back then, what is possible, in today's world?
Well, you have to be careful with the Philadelphia experiment, because Al Bielek has been. I just don't buy his story. You cannot leave your body and then be reborn into a different body, as he so claims. I mean, right there, the whole thing falls apart. Not to mention another researcher, I forget his name, but another unknown one, did some research, and one of the photos that Bielek was using as his brother, I think a graduation photo, turned out to be a whole other person. It was by the same last name, but in no relation to Al Bielek or his brother. And the family had no idea that Bielek was using their family member's photo to perpetuate his part in the Philadelphia experiment. So that's my problem with it. I'm not denying that something happened. I just don't think that Al Bielek, transferred bodies. And
well, as far
a lot
as
of these people might not.
As far as I understood, it wasn't really about transferring bodies. It was about transferring basically like a time warp. You're taking the ship and these people on the ship and you're warping them to somewhere else to get that up and up on the, war scale or whatever. The ship can be here and then all of a sudden it's way over here. And when they did that, and it wasn't, from what I recall, it was Tesla that had first done this, and it went really, really bad. But it did disappear and then reappear, and then people were in the bulkheads, in the floor, and other places. Some people survived, and others were just a part of the ship till death. And it was pretty
and the people that did
insane.
Survive, the majority of them went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't the reason that they were even doing these tests, performing these tests. This isn't even an option that they thought was going to be a possibility. What my understanding is that they were testing cloaking capabilities to be able to cloak their ship from being able to be signaled by radar, and that when they went to perpetuate this cloak around them, that it caused the ship to teleport.
Wow.
Yeah, it went away and then it came back, and it was very, very disastrous. And I believe, didn't they also try this in Russia? And the ship actually appeared inside of a cliff that was right next to the ocean, a part of it sticking out.
I
haven't heard of that.
I recall
vague recollection.
Yeah, I recall seeing the ship and the front of it sticking out, but the majority of it inside of the cliff side. And there's no way that could have happened with time and everything, normally speaking. But with this experiment, it just took it from the seaside and then stuck it in the side of this cliff. And most of those guys perished as well. And I think that was, after that, they quit experimenting with people on board. I haven't heard of any other experiments after that as far as the Philadelphia experience or experiment, but who knows, because they do stuff under, or behind our backs all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what shall we go on to next?
Robert's all quiet over there. Robert, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just looking for stuff online about what you're talking about. I just found the picture, well, a picture. I don't know if it's the exact one, but it has the bow of a Russian ship sticking out the side of a cliff. I've just put it into Travelers.
Nice.
If anyone is over in Space Travelers and wants to have a look, there it is.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks for looking that up kind of on the whim, because, you know, I mean, we're skipping around like rocks on a pond tonight.
Yeah, we're kind of blindsided, but we came together and we're going to accomplish something good. And I'm enjoying what we're talking about already. So anybody else, you know, is that all that you wanted to talk about with your stuff, Jason?
Well, as far as Robert Kennedy and that subject goes, I mean, people can just dive into that one. But when we're talking about mind control programs and MK Ultra, these terms now are so loosely thrown around, it drives me nuts. And here's the thing, 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when researchers and, you know, unnamed, like me, you know, nobody knows who the heck I am, but, you know, guys like me and, you know, people like you doing research and doing these things, I lost my train of thought. God, I hate that. It's what happens when you multitask. But remind me what I was saying, God.
You're talking about Robert Kennedy and then you had gone from there.
Yeah. See, I lost it because it's such a fast-paced thing. Once you start looking things up, it goes from one subject to the next, to the next, to the next. So I'll try to keep on track myself. But as far as the mind, now I remember, it's trickling down into the popular culture of today. I'll give you a great example. This freaked me out. So the other day, I have a 6-year-old daughter. Now, the other day, she comes up to me and she says, "Dad, what's the Illuminati?" I flipped out. I said, "Where did you hear that?" On one of my kids' programs. I said, "One of your kids' programs? Show me which one." And I'm thinking, what in God's name are, you know, 8 to 12-year-olds talking about the Illuminati for? No, seriously. Because that's about the age range of these videos. And I said, first off, no, these videos are too old for you. You know, it's hard to keep track of, because now, with the invention of YouTube, and I monitor everything that she watches, and I've had to tell her, look, you can't watch this anymore, you can't watch this anymore. Why? Well, as she says, blah, 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 you could probably hear her in the background. And she's upset that I'm on the radio tonight, actually.
I know. She's very smart. She's like, "Are you getting paid for this?" "No." "Well, then it's a waste of time." I was like, tell her I don't get paid for this either. And I appreciate your time, and I know it's taken away from her, but I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Well, that's another big misconception I think the public has about research, is that we make gobs of money. We don't make anything. I mean, other than what, you know, guys like Dave Scott does, and, you know, running the station and the show and taking donations or things like that. Or if you happen to get sponsored, hey, great. But for the most part, you know, this is all our own, you know, time and effort and things. And because everything is now so much handed to you, you know, with the invention of Google, you know, Google it. You know, nobody walks out their front door anymore. They're like we've heard a lot on the show, armchair researchers.
Yeah, so the go-to, you can go to that for anything, Google or YouTube. Like when I was working on my car when I was stuck in Phoenix at my mom and sister's house, I was a YouTube mechanic, and I was actually getting stuff done, and I was pretty proud of myself.
Yeah,
but
Dan was impressed. Yeah.
It's right at our fingertips. Like anything that we need, we can just type it in, or now they have the talk to text, or you can even ask Siri. But yeah, it's very cool and interesting, but it's kind of scary because we're not picking up those things that we used to, as far as going out to the library or going to the newspaper or going where else to get all this other information.
Well, I was mentioning to a friend of mine the other day, I said, you know what I really miss, it may sound goofy, is going to the video store and looking up obscure titles. You can't really do that anymore because these private companies have such a hold on the entertainment. You know, you got Netflix and you got to pay for them, and then you're not, and then, you know, you can look online to see the the secret menus for Netflix to find non-popular movies, but even still, it's that human interaction has been taken away yet again. I mean, when I was a kid, I had a friend whose parents owned a video store. I remember one Halloween, they let us watch The Exorcist about 30 years ago. It scared the hell out of everybody. But, that kind of thing doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. I still have not seen that.
Oh, you haven't?
You cut out.
No, I haven't.
She still hasn't seen that movie, she said.
The Exorcist?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't watch it. I probably watched 10 minutes of it, and I started actually literally feeling sick.
Watched it through your faces?
No, well, this is when I watched it, 30 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about Siri and other AI, and that brings me back to hanging out with my sister in Phoenix, Amanda, and we're looking up all these videos on YouTube, and she's like, "Hey, we should try this out. You got Siri on your phone, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've never used it, but I know it's there." And she's like, "Ask her this, ask her that, ask her this," and I swear to you, she got mad at me. She is pissed off at me. And now when I ask for the simplest things, she gives me the runaround, because I was kind of poking and prodding at her and asking these certain questions. Amanda, do you remember some of those questions we asked?
I will, in just 1 second, I'll tell you what they were.
Okay, yeah. I was afraid to do it from the get-go. I was just like, I don't know, because I've been watching these videos on AI, and, their main thing is to dominate man and dominate the world, and I was like, I don't know if I should do this, but we did it anyways. So when she gets that pulled up, she'll tell you some of the questions that we were asking. But yeah, Siri's mad at me, and sometimes it accidentally goes to Siri, and I'm like, get out, get out, get out. One of the last times she talked to me, I didn't do anything to get on Siri. She just came up out of nowhere, and she's like, "Did you summon me?" And I was like, "Oh my God!"
That sounds a little bit like...
What a word for AI to use.
What, Robert?
That sounds a little bit like the GPS systems in the cars down here.
Yeah.
One time we were driving down south towards Gympie, and that's a place between here and Brisbane, and the GPS kept on saying, turn left now, turn left. It sort of got deeper and deeper, like as if it was trying to get us to turn left, but there was no left turn, so we just kept ignoring it, and by the end it sounded like it was really angry at us. That was 10, 15 odd years back. So it all started with the tom-toms and things like that.
Yeah, they're getting more and more intelligent. And they have, they're building themselves, and they're self-aware, and they're looking out for their best interest, and they're feeding off of us as far as, like, what we're needing or wanting. And if you don't listen, I often say, when my husband doesn't listen to the GPS, "Why do I even bother? You never listen to me," in this Siri voice.
Oh, I've never heard an AI say that. I think I'd be a little freaked out.
Yeah. Well, when Siri said, "Did you summon me?" and I did nothing to pull her up, it freaked me out. I'm like, no, I didn't. Go away. I never want to talk to you again.
Well, I'll tell you, some weird things have been happening with my cell phone. Like I'll lay it on the counter, and then you know how it goes off after a certain amount of time. It goes, to a blank or black screen. Every now and again, I'll walk by it, and the OK Google screen will come up, like I summoned the OK Google thing, and it's like I didn't pull that up.
Yeah.
Or it listens to me in my conversations. I was talking about a medical thing the other day, and then I got ads for what I was talking about, and I'm thinking, okay, it's hitting me. And here's the thing: what I've noticed when I lived in Maryland, this didn't happen. This did not happen when I lived in Maryland. Now, when I moved to Phoenix, it started happening. So it tells me Phoenix must be a test market for something. I know it's a test market for 5G. 5G's everywhere out here. It's like frying everybody, along with the hot weather. And
Yeah.
Now here's something that the cable company has started, which I find, here's another ruse, another BS thing that they use to make money. Now everybody, I think most modems now come with built-in wireless router along with, the LAN, the Ethernet one. Well, my cable company started something called panoramic Wi-Fi. Now you'll be able to get wireless in every room of your house. Well, wasn't that the point of wireless before?
Yeah.
Was to get wireless in every area of your house? So now why are you adding something called panoramic Wi-Fi? What the hell does it do? It does the same thing. You can go in your room or different rooms or all in your house and you still have the signal. There is nothing has changed. It's just like they simply made up a new feature out of nowhere. So I know that kind of got off on a tangent, but like I said, a lot of reports about 5G too. I haven't really delved into that too much, but I know it's not good. It can cause you not to sleep and all sorts of problems.
Amanda, did you find those questions?
Yeah, one of them was we were calling her Cortana, and we were calling her Jeeves, and we asked her what 0 divided by 0 was. We asked her if she was part of the CIA, if the NSA was listening in on our conversation. Goodness, there was a whole list of them, but I'm having trouble finding them. But those were definitely some that I remember.
Yeah, and I think as soon as we asked if she was working for the FBI or the CIA, she shut down several times. But on that note, we got to go to our first break. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
There's news, and there's the encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Tonight's show and topic of discussion do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Spaced Out Radio, SOR Media, or its hosts. Listener discretion is advised. Here comes the second hour of Spaced Out Sunday with host Tessa N Thomas. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. And you can follow Tessa on Twitter at Tessa TNT. Now, back to the show.
Hey guys, welcome back, and thanks for hanging out with us tonight. We're talking about hauntings, conspiracy theories, and everything in between. But before we get to that, we have a special guest, a very, very special guest. She is very smart and very strong-willed, and she is indeed a free spirit. Jason, can you introduce us to our special guest?
Oh, well, my daughter was, first off, she was upset at me because I was on the radio tonight. And she was upset that I wasn't getting paid, which I find funny. and she wanted to tell a joke, and I asked her what joke, and I said, you want thousands of people to hear you say that? She says, yes, and she laughed. So are you ready to go on the air? Okay, you got to say hi to everybody now. All right, hold on. Let me hand the phone to her. Don't be scared.
And a first name, too, if
Hi,
she could.
Everyone.
Hi, what's your name?
Everyone. My name's Melody.
Melody, it's so great to see you and hear from you. I'm so honored to have you on the show. So I hear that you want to tell us a joke.
Yeah, guess what?
What?
Chicken butt.
Ah.
Chicken butt. Chicken butt.
All right now. Oh, she thinks
Guess
that's
why?
the me.
Chicken pot pie.
Yeah, she said, guess why? Chicken pot pie.
Hey, ew.
Yes, I
Okay,
did laugh.
that's
You're
enough.
very funny. Thank you for making us smile and laugh for the second hour.
Thank
We're
you
so
for
happy
making
to
us
have
smile
you.
and laugh. She said, you're welcome. Thank you for that, because she was... Sorry, guys. Thank you for the audience for that.
No worries. Thanks for letting her do that. That's awesome. I'm smiling like my cheeks are hurting right now.
Yeah. I hear that.
How old is she, Jason?
She's 6, trying to go on 16.
Yeah.
Much to your dismay, I imagine.
Well, let me tell you, because whenever I turn on Space Out Radio, she'll sing along with Bumblefoot, the song. And earlier, she said, you know why I'm upset at you for going on the radio? I said, no, tell me. She says, well, I had a question last week and you didn't answer it. And I said, well, I didn't know you had a question. I was busy. What was your question? I wanted to know where UFOs come from. I know that they're spaceships and we make them, or supposed to make them, but I want to know more. And I'm like, well, why didn't you? I had no idea, but pretty inquisitive for being 6.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that kind of brings up another topic as far as conspiracy theories and strange happenings in our world. UFOs, you know how we have sightings of the triangular ones with the lights on the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly, according to many people, these are not alien UFOs. These are made by us. And one of the people that helped to create the engine for this, first off, is Tesla doing the repulsive engine, where one blade or wheel spins clockwise and the other one spins counterclockwise with magnesium in it, which gives it that free flow, and it causes a gravitational effect that causes the shuttle or whatnot to float and go against gravity. But John Hutchison is not only involved in that, he's involved in 9/11, which we'll get into that later. But he was born October 19th, 1945, as a Canadian and a self-proclaimed inventor who claims to have discovered and promptly forgotten the secrets of levitation, free energy, and how to make certain metals vanish. He also claims to work for the U.S. military while living in Vancouver, Canada. He also ran a blog and all that other stuff, but you can find all this information on Wikipedia, and there's also other sites that you can go to. But it says, while attempting to recreate the experiments of Nikola Tesla in the late 1970s, Hutchison claims to have discovered many new phenomena, primarily manifesting in metals. The effects of his experiments supposedly included metal objects floating to the ceiling, shattering, becoming warm, fusing with other objects, and other interesting manifestations. Jack Mackerel's trying to call me right now.
Hilarious.
Sorry. I'm sure you guys heard the buzzing. That's Jack Mackerel trying to get through. I cannot say his real name as I've been declared not to. But these desperate manifestations are also all lumped together under the name Hutchison effect. Explanations of the effect rely heavily on technobabble, especially referencing zero-point gravity and Casimir effect. In particular, Hutchison claims to have invented batteries called crystal batteries or Hiroshima batteries or Hiroshima cells, which are capable of creating free energy. And I know there's a lot of poo-pooing about free energy. They've actually given it a different name now, but This technological revolution, which has the potential to change the world around us, is yet another example of Hutchinson's extraordinary work, going unappreciated. And I'm pretty sure this guy is like self-taught, or going from what he's learned from Tesla or whatnot. But it's certainly odd too when one considers that no other scientific breakthroughs have been blocked in such a way in democratic countries such as Canada that make such a breakthrough. Would a person be a billionaire? So no attempt to replicate the Hutchinson's experiment by the third party has so far been successful, or they're just not telling us about it because they hide everything from us. Many agencies, including NASA, have attempted to recreate the Hutchinson effect. After extensive testing, Mark Millis, NASA's head of finding new propulsion methods for spacecraft, wrote, "This Hutchinson effect has been claimed for years without any independent verification, ever. In fact, its originator can't even replicate it on demand. This has been investigated more than once, been part of documentaries on the Discovery Channel, but still never seems to pass critical muster. This is in the category of folklore. In general, the American Anti-Gravity website caters to such folklore and its enthusiasts." But it's interesting because if the government doesn't want us to know something, they'll cut it down and they'll wipe out the person that's trying to share this information. And it happens time and time again, going along with conspiracy theories. But this guy was involved in this. He's talking about how these triangular aircrafts, the Phoenix Lights, where we saw these by, I believe it was North Mountain, and there was no shutting down of the airport, there was no military backup, there was no police trying to get it, supposedly. This also is known to happen in the Navajo Nation because they are a sovereign nation. They can call the cops and tell them what they're seeing, but they never do anything about it, which makes people think that this is a government thing, that this is made by us. Had it been an actual UFO, you'd have some military aircraft chasing it or police trying to get some footage. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, the Phoenix Lights, I really do think that was more a military aircraft, in my opinion. I think that we have the ability to replicate technology and do reverse engineering, and I fully believe that that's what the largest group of people that have reported a sighting saw that night. The way that it followed the highways and things of that nature, I don't know. I think that if somebody was going to come light years away for some reason, that they would have better things to do than follow the I-17.
Yeah, I remember that night. But more importantly, I'll have to credit this one to Tessa laugh, Jack Mackerel. And he tried calling me too. But one of the things that that he mentioned is a good point, is it flew over, a major city, and not one National Guard. I think we have one over there in McDowell and Phoenix. Nobody was deployed.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't stop air traffic from coming in and out. Obviously, it was no concern, so they knew exactly what was going on. The only people who didn't know was the general public. I mean, you can't have a craft of that size, supposedly unknown, flying over civilian airspace. If that happened over the White House airspace, they'd be scrambling jets.
Yeah. And where my mom and Amanda are located is right by, is it North Mountain or South Mountain? I think it's South Mountain, right?
Yeah, we're right by South Mountain.
Yeah, and so we've looked time and time again, but things that I notice every day, like all day, is aircraft flying over from this direction, and the next. Had there been something there that shouldn't have been there, they would have shut all that stuff down, but they didn't seem to. So it makes you wonder. It makes you scratch your head and think, what's really going on here?
Well, you know, part of public reaction. We got to test public reaction, fly that thing out there. You know, deny and cover it up is always the government policy, usually. So,
do you believe that has any association with, like, Project Bluebeam?
Not that particular incident, no. I don't think that was a Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, me neither.
The reason I ask that is because I think, you know, if one of the parts of the goal of Project Bluebeam is to simulate a UFO attack that the government magically steps in and saves us from, and I feel like if they are wanting to maybe test reaction and things of that nature first, that's where I wondered if there could be any association.
Yeah, and it kind of goes along with the Star Wars and such. Like, what exactly were they doing? And Ronald Reagan was heard several times talking about if there was an alien invasion, how all countries would form together and... Sorry.
Yeah.
Jack Mackerel's calling again. How they would form together and there would be peace worldwide. Like, that's a nice thought, but at the same time, don't BS us. Like, don't do... It may be the Project Bluebeam when they, you know, form things or make things be seen in the sky, like the little swirlies that we see and such, making us wonder, what the heck is that? Is that alien? Is that Project Bluebeam? What is that? And a lot of people don't even know about Project Bluebeam. It's so crazy. And like, if you see, like, they did this demonstration in a school where there's a whale jumping out of the water and splashing the whole crowd, and it looks so real, like it was right there, but it's really not. So how are we to know what are actual UFOs, and what is this Project Bluebeam, and is this a part of or a stemming off of the Star Wars and now Donald Trump's new thing? I don't know.
Well, I think
one of the. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna the Project Bluebeam thing, but go ahead and make your point now.
I was just going to say, as far as that goes, one of the things that I find with why it's not more widespread, it's like, try talking to the normal person and describing Project Bluebeam and describing the different agendas and goals of Project Bluebeam. It makes you sound absolutely crazy. And then you go and you read the research and it's just very, it's like it's designed specifically to make it contain itself to where it's not going to be a widespread message, because the average person is going to hear that and think that there's a problem, with you.
Yeah.
So, Jack Mackerel, being I have an iPhone, I can actually read what he left on the text message or the voicemail. And he was saying how he heard some people that were looking at the spacecraft with night vision equipment, they could actually see through it, and that would explain why they didn't shut down all the local municipal airport and the international airport, because it was a hologram projection and not a physical craft. And he heard that, and he's still looking into it, he says.
You never know. That's, I think what a more probable Project Bluebeam thing would be, and here I attuned to seeing this with my own eyes more fantastic than, say, a UFO sighting, only because it's not supposed to happen now, and that is watching planes stop in midair. Now, I know a lot of people are rolling their eyes and they'll say, well, the wind and this and that. No. Where I lived in Maryland, I drove this freeway on a regular basis, and it was where the air traffic come into land. Well, it was flying, or I watched a Southwest plane coming in one day as I was driving on the freeway, and this thing literally stopped in midair. And it lingered there. And it was low enough to where, it wasn't windy out, the weather was clear, And for wind to be blowing that hard to hold an airliner sustained in the air for several seconds, I think you definitely would have felt that on the ground, because it was low enough I could read the tail fin, Southwest Airlines. As a matter of fact, somebody, a professional baseball player could probably throw a baseball. I wouldn't say nearly hit it, but probably come, I don't want to say close, but that I think would be more of a Project Bluebeam thing. But it looked, like I said, you don't know. It looks real because you're looking at a plane. It's stopped in midair and it's not supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the videos on YouTube and I thought, well, that was some pretty good editing until I saw it myself. I would accept a wind theory or whatever, the wind blowing and holding the plane back, but it's too low to do that. That's the problem. The plane's too low in the sky. So another one to scratch your head at.
Yeah, and I was wrong as far as where this repulsine engine came from. I was thinking it was Tesla, but that's dealing with 9/11. Jack Mackerel let me know that Victor Schallberger, which was a German guy, had actually come up with it, and he used liquid mercury. He used red mercury on the clockwise, and on the counterclockwise he used a different mercury. And they would start the engine with diesel propulsion. They'd start it off with a diesel and then let it go on its own, and it would make whatever machine that it was controlling float. So that's where most likely the first UFO came from. And we can look back on videos of Germans and stuff trying to test out their little UFO, and it was cute and everything, but it was like wobbling back and forth and they weren't quite getting it. But who knows where they're at with it these days.
Well, I thought red mercury was supposed to be a fictional thing. That's what I thought. I think there was something about it. I could be wrong. Like I said, there's so much. I mean, you could see, Mae Brussels spent her whole life on researching things. So that goes to show you how much information there is out there. 8 years on the Kennedy assassination alone, just to get the facts and stories and everything straight. And that's not to mention all the declassified stuff that came out after that, just to use them as an example.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Robert, do you have any thoughts?
Not really. Not seeing how I have very little information on it down here. But from what I'm seeing now, I've just been researching it as you've been speaking about it. And for the Phoenix Lights, I don't know. If it was that big and that active, then they should have been scrambling jets to go after it, as you were saying. But if nothing was happening, then I'm thinking the pilots are thinking, oh, let's see how scared we can get these people. And for the Project Bluebeam, with today's advancements in technology for holographics, then yeah, that could easily have been a hologram.
Right. And we don't know how well they've perfected the hologram technology either.
Well, I just, like Tessa said, I saw that footage that they did where they broadcast the real D and had that whale jumping into the middle of the auditorium. And, I mean, if you could have swore you were right there, it really did look like the real thing.
Yeah.
Yes, scary how much they've perfected it. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, didn't they do a Prince concert, too, in holographic, or Michael Jackson a few years ago?
And
Tupac. It was a whole holographic concert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Tupac.
I mean,
they didn't get the permission from Prince's family to do his.
Oh, they didn't? I didn't. I know
there was one, I think it was at the Grammys or something like that, where they had this silk curtain hanging down. But it wasn't like the Project Bluebeam. They just projected the image of Prince playing on the silk curtain, and then at the end it fell. So that's kind of different. But yeah, they did do Tupac. I know they did Michael Jackson, and I don't know how many other deceased people that they did that with. And it looks like they're there. It's freaky crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you know, whole other that's the thing. You take one thing and then the Tupac thing. And I forget. I think Suge Knight said something though. He's probably smoking a Havana. Well, you know, a lot of people think that was a tip off that he was really living and didn't die. I don't know about all that. I wasn't a Tupac fan. I was actually not even into that sort of music. So when he died, I had, no idea. Oh, he got killed. Okay. But it wasn't until years later that I, heard these various conspiracy theories about him, things like that. So, who knows?
Well,
I think if anybody... Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, there definitely were a lot of conspiracy theories to be derived from that event, though. I mean, you bringing up Suge Knight, just simply Suge Knight and that whole situation with him being in the driver's seat, that's a conspiracy theory, in that situation on its own. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, he actually, before he took the flight out to California, he actually told his camp that he was going to be killed when he went there, and he didn't want to go there.
Yeah, that's... I had another thing about this. I just escaped the tip of my tongue as you were talking, but go on. It's just that, I don't know, it had something to do with the Tupac and the whole faking your death thing. I remember. If anybody was able to fake their death and probably get away with it, it'd be Jim Morrison from the Doors. And the only reason I say that is his father was an admiral in the Navy, Admiral of Naval Intelligence, right there at the Gulf of Tonkin, the beginning of the Vietnam War, which I believe was later to prove not even happen. So I'm sure if Morrison staged his death, the Admiral could have had him go underground. And I'm sure the Admiral probably would have kept his mouth about it till the day he died, too, because France at the time was, I think, a CIA hotbed for a lot of training and things as well. My memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, and that takes me to things in between what we're talking about. You're talking about Jim Morrison. You just sent me some links, I believe it was last week, of his son singing some songs, and it really blew me away how much he sounds like his dad. Like, it's amazing. Can you tell us his name and a little bit about him?
Well, we have to be careful when we talk about Cliff Morrison being Jim Morrison's son. Hold on. Everybody can hear that on the air, so you have to be a little more quiet. She's playing with styrofoam. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Anyways, his the Reader's Digest version is his mother was friends with Pamela Corson, which was Jim Morrison's long-term girlfriend. And they never were actually legally married, although some reports say they were. They never were. Mm-hmm. So basically, according to Cliff, Morrison got together with his mother during one of the many breakups with Pam, and they had a little tryst for a couple of months, and then she ended up pregnant with Cliff. So the story goes, is what he told me, and Morrison the only mention of Morrison having a child is in one of his poetry sessions that he recorded for an American Prayer album. Well, that was a posthumous album that the Doors put together in 1978. But he mentions it in a recording, having a son, one day my boy will own you, and things like that. So he uses that as loosely proof. Plus, he's read a letter from the Admiral over the air to me, or even private, because he did take a DNA test in the early 90s, and the family did not release the results of it. And if you go on the internet, there's a lot of stuff accusing Cliff of not taking a DNA or him refusing. It's not that. It's the Morrison family did not release the results. They did not deny nor confirm the blood relation, but basically told them, hey, good luck in your endeavors. And so far, he hasn't been sued for using Morrison's recording in his own music. So you have to wonder, I think a lot of things behind the scenes, I think a lot of people really know what's going on, but they love the controversy, so they themselves put out the controversy. Cliff, by his own admission, put out some of the own controversy about himself on the internet, just because, to keep the myth going, so to speak. But you look him up and you look at his picture and you listen to how he talks, it's pretty. I'm about a 95% that he's probably the illegitimate son of Jim Morrison. Now, a lot of people tell you no, that he's a faker and this, that, and the other thing, but like I said, I think it's a good high probability that he is.
Yeah, and
we could probably get him on the air one of these days. You never know.
Yeah, that would be awesome, and that also brings me back to the 27 Club. Do you know what that is?
Of course. First one that started was Robert Johnson.
We were actually talking about that today on the TV, and I was kind of surprised that they were giving many former examples of members of the 27 Club, but when they would talk about modern examples, the only two that they would give would be Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. There's been so many others. I mean, one that comes to mind, stands out, is Heath Ledger.
Yeah, and what about, I forget her name because I'm not a fan of the group, but Courtney Hull's guitarist, I think she was 27, died in a bathtub too. Morrison, Cliff Morrison, that has put a lot of people together that died in bathtubs that had a connection to, I'm not going to name his name because I think the accusation is downright silly and incorrect. They're a relative of Morrison's he thinks had something to do with the deaths of, not only Morrison, but Pamela Corson and a few other people like Domino Harvey and Althea Flint. All these people died in bathtubs of overdoses. I mean, what is the probability of that?
Well, it's not only that, but all of these artists that went through the 27 Club, including Richie Valens and I believe Buddy Holly and other people along those lines, for as long back, even back in the blues days, they had some people in there, and they all died at the age of 27. Many of them had a white lighter in their pocket. There were so many similarities that came up about these people, and it's kind of hard to shrug it off and think it doesn't mean anything. It really does seem kind of like a conspiracy against artists and some sort of sacrifice, and being that music is the universal language. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to figure out what exactly is going on there, but it's hard, like I said, to shrug off the similarities.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting what you had to say, Jason, about the, bathtubs, the overdoses, and how maybe, that might be systematic. And I feel like that there are several other examples, not just in music. I mean, Whitney Houston was in music, but her daughter, passed away. And then most recently, the gentleman that was at the house when her body was found, the one who located her, he just was found, passed away of an overdose as well. And it seems like these trends, it's like car accidents and bathtubs.
Yeah. And here's another scary thing. There's the research of Mae Brussels, I forget what, there's so much, but basically there's some sort of covert weapon that they use that, much in the way of Bon Scott from AC/DC died, you can choke on your own vomit and leave no trace, and people will think, oh, it was a natural OD, or he did too much or whatever. So,
well, they had Janis Joplin, they had Jimi Hendrix, they had a lot of people that, like you said, went the same way and had white lighters in their pocket, and, it's just weird. How does it add up like that for everybody,
Well, interesting about Jimi Hendrix, if I remember from the biography right, when he was in the ambulance, they strapped him upwards in a chair, and when he went forward, every time he leaned forward to vomit because he was choking, they ended up strapping his head back for whatever reason, and he choked on it in his own bile. Years later, I don't know if it's true, but by an account from his manager, and I forget, I think the guy wrote a book about it, but in a interview, I guess, the guy who wrote the book and Hendrix's manager they were hanging out, drinking one night, and he admitted to killing Hendrix. What he said he did is basically he went in there with a couple of guys and held him down, shoved pills down his throat with mixed it, with wine, and he was asphyxiated and drowned, because when they did the autopsy, they didn't find any drugs in his stomach, but it was all in his throat. It didn't go all the way down. It was like he was choked and asphyxiated. Whether that account is real or not or true, don't know, but that's according to this source. It's been several years since I've read about it, and probably at least over a decade. It came out sometime in the early 2000s about that story.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and I was just looking it up, and it's saying the 27 Club is a list of popular musicians, artists, or actors who died at age 27. It originated with an unsupported claim of statistical spike for the death of musicians at the age, but this has been repeatedly disproved by research. It remains a cultural meme documenting the deaths of celebrities, most noted for their high-risk lifestyles. Names are often put forward for inclusion, but because the club is entirely notional, there is no official membership. But from what I understood, it was actually like a club or some sort of formation for these artists to get their big break. And, people are saying in the chat room, Big Bopper, here it says Brian Jones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, like so many people.
About Brian Jones, one of the accounts was one of the guys who was there that witnessed it, and he was afraid to come forward. But he said that I think one of the Hell's Angels held Brian Jones' head under the water in the swimming pool and drowned him, killed him.
Well, Jim Morrison's...
True, but that's...
Yeah. It was actually Cobain's mother said, now he's gone and joined that stupid club. I told him not to join that stupid club. So there is actually a club called the 27 Club. Because why else would she have said that?
Well, I don't think it was a real club. I think what she meant was, look, there's a so-called club. I mean, it's not official. There's no, meeting, so to speak. But maybe he said, maybe I'll be part of that club one day. People who died at 27. Maybe that was her response to that. Don't be part of that. Don't do that.
Yeah, and it's saying in 2011, 17 years after Cobain's death, Amy Winehouse died at the age of 27, prompting a renewed swell in the media attention devoted to that club once again. So it's just restirring the media and restirring the, I don't know if you want to call it superstition or whatnot, but it just kind of reopened that door, or that rabbit hole, as Amanda would say.
Well, whoever's doing it loves their numbers, don't they?
Yeah, and 27, it's just crazy how it keeps happening like that, but the 20s are pretty crazy years for those of us growing up and actually living through it.
Yeah, I remember all that. See, the kids, the young people nowadays, when they listen to Nirvana and all those alternative bands, back in those days, I didn't really care for Nirvana at the time. They were oversaturated on the radio, as with anything. Pearl Jam. I mean, I blame Eddie Vedder for every rock musician from 1993 to 1999 sounding the same.
Yeah.
You stick Scott Stapp and Nickelback guy and all these guys together, and they sing Pro Tools. Voice, when they sing. It's just horrid. And, now that these guys have turned political, Eddie Vedder and Bono, it's like, you know what, shut up and sing. I don't want to hear about your political views. No offense, that's what we're for. You're the singer, and we're the researchers. I'm being a little facetious, but still, it's crazy.
Don't be facetious. No. But they're saying that there's also a titled song called 27 by Fall Out Boy, that followed those things. And yeah, it's an interesting, I think, coincidence. Alexandra Levy, 27 years and 98 days. Louis Chavon, 27 years, 13 days. Robert Johnson, 27 years, 100 days. Nat Jaffe, 27 years, 216 days. Jesse Belvin, 27 years, 53 days. Rudy Lewis, 27 years, 271 days. Joe Henderson, 27 years, 183 days. Malcolm Hill, 27 years, 166 days. Dickie Pride, 27 years, 156 days. Brian Jones, 27 years, 125 days. Alexandra, who was a journal vocalist, he died in a car accident, 27 years, 73 days. Alan Blind Al Wilson, 27 years, 61 days. Jimi Hendrix, 27 years, 295 days. Janis Joplin, 27 years, 258 days. Arlister Dyke Christian, 27 years and days. Jim Morrison, 27 years. Linda Jones, 27. Leslie Harvey, 27. Ron Pigpen, 27. And these are mostly actors, actresses, and vocal musicians. Robert Lee Durham, Wallace Wally John, Dave Alexander, Pete Ham, Gary Thane, Cecilia, Helmut Colin, Chris Bell, Zenon DeFleur, Jacob Miller, D. Boone, Alexander Bashlavchev, Jean-Michel Besquet. I mean, the list goes on and on. Pete DeFreitas, Chris Austin, Dimitar Vuv, Mia Zapata, Kurt Cobain, Christian Pfaff, Richie Edwards, Stretch, Fat Pat, Freaky Ta, Cammy, Rodrigo Bueno, Sean Patrick McCobb, Maria Sereno, Jonathan Jeremy, Michael Ward, Pat Tillman, Devor Mosrick Bobic. Yeah. Pat Tillman, 27 years, 168 days, professional American football player. Friendly Fire.
Yeah, I know who he was. I just didn't know he died at 27. That's strange. Well, here's the thing about Robert Johnson. Now, it's no mystery how he died. I don't know if a lot of people know, but he was poisoned by a juke joint bar owner because Johnson was, I don't know if he was having an affair with the guy's wife, but I know that the wife was into Johnson. And he was playing a juke joint one night, and somebody brought him a bottle of whiskey, and it was open. You know, the tab was broken on the top of the cap. And one of his buddies knocked it out of his hand and said, "Man, don't you ever drink from an open bottle." Because, you know, being a good musician in those days was dangerous. Men
people like to dose you with acid or whatever, just be nice to you. If you're not expecting it, it could be bad.
Yeah, so he gets a bottle knocked out of his hand. Johnson said, "Man, don't you ever tell me how to drink my whiskey." So he ordered another bottle. Another bottle was brought to him, cap, seal broken again, and he took a drink, and I think halfway through his second set, he got sick. He couldn't finish. He contracted pneumonia and died about a week later, but he was poisoned by hemlock.
Wow. And I just kind of want to finish this list just to honor these people because I started and I just looked and I'm almost at the end. So I'm going to read off a handful more names. Devor Moskry Bobic, Brian Otteson, Valentine Elizold, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Elizold, Damien Damo Morris, Orish Grinstead, Lily Timbo, Elizabeth Bisbee, Amirian, Nate Niek, Etchik Spin, Amy Winehouse, Richard Turner, Nicole Boner, Sahara Davenport, Surish Lulush, Farazmond, Slada Guduras, Thomas Lowe, Thomas Fakete, Anton Yelkin, Kim Jong-hyun, and Fredo Santana. All 27 years old. And most of them are violent deaths. Liver failure, suicide, accidental blunt force trauma, cancer, road accident, murder. Drug overdose is a big part of it. Murder, gastritis, kidney failure. Just abuse to their bodies at such a young age, because people do have that social anxiety and that fear of being in front of people, even though they have this amazing gift. It's hard to get over that fear, that stage fright, and so they'll self-medicate with either drugs or alcohol to get over it, and look at all this stuff it causes. It's pretty traumatic, but That's a lot of people in the 27 Club. I must say.
That seems like, I didn't count, but it seemed like, an endless list over almost 100 people, probably. I don't know what the exact number is.
Felt like forever. But, yeah, that was interesting. And it actually, Amanda said she heard it just recently on the news. I just heard it the other day while I was going to my niece's murder trial on the radio. And we were just talking about that. I think it was you and I talking about that last time you were on at the after show. And then it came up the next day on the radio, and I was like, go figure, like, how does that even happen? But, yeah, it's interesting, and it really does make people wonder and think what exactly is going on there.
Hmm.
All right, let's see.
Very strange.
Yeah. So we got about 11 more minutes. So let's see. I would go into 9/11, but that's going to take some time because there's a lot of different evidence, and I want to pick that up on third hour. So let's see what else we got. Do you have anything in your bag of goodies?
Do I have anything in what?
In your bag of goodies, as far as conspiracy theories, hauntings, or in between?
I have a lot. It's just a matter of what people would like to hear. I don't know if they're exhausted on the old MK Ultra stuff or anything, but I could talk about a little bit about Jim Keith if you want, because this is another researcher. You talk about people who die mysteriously. Mm-hmm. He did a number of books. Let's see. Some of the titles were Black Helicopters Over America, Black Helicopters 2, The Endgame Strategy, excuse me. Mass Control, World Control, and then the follow-up book, Mass Control, Engineering Human Consciousness. That's about mind control stuff. And what I like about his work is he actually goes and does the research and, gets the scientists' names and universities, and some of them, some of the information is pulled from, declassified documents or, books that these people have themselves has written. For instance, Jose Delgado, one of his early works is called Physical Control of the Mind Toward a Psycho-Civilized Society. And he ended up inventing, let's see, there's so much that this guy has done. He invented something called, it says another type of stimoceiver was the radio injector. The subjects of this type of stimoceiver are, according to Delgado, equipped with mutilated electrodes attached to fine tunings forming assemblies called chemitrodes, which are permanently implanted into the brain. Administration of chemicals is performed with a specifically designed chemitrode pump, which measures 40 by 18 millimeters and weighs only 10 grams, and consists of two lucite compartments separated by an elastic membrane. One side is filled with the synthetic spiral fluid or any other solution to be injected, and the adjoining side is filled with a solution of hydrozone. When a current is passed through the latter compartment, gas is released, and its pressure pushes the drug to be injected to the chemitrode. In an interview, Delgado said that the brain is like an ocean through which, by relying on instrument guidance, we can navigate without visibility and reach a specific destination. And he was able, here's one that he was able, an experiment that he performed. Dr. Colin Ross describes another experiment performed by Delgado. He describes a technical innovation in an 11-year-old boy who had brain electrodes implanted for non-therapeutic reasons. Previously, you had to have wires connected to the transmitter box directly to the electrode terminals that were sticking through the skull. In this 11-year-old boy, however, Jose Delgado had figured out how to have a remote transmitter without a direct wire connection. He describes pushing a button in this otherwise normal 11-year-old boy's brain transmitter box, and the boy starts being confused about his identity, wondering whether he is a girl or a boy, and talking about wanting to marry Jose Delgado. He pushes another button, and this behavior stops. Now, you have to think about what's going on now when people say, these young kids, I feel like a boy or girl, or I don't want to get totally into that, but you have to wonder where it's coming from. And if subliminal messages are being pumped through, various technologies, 5G or however they do it, you really have to wonder. And I'm sure a lot of people are rolling their eyes and going, yeah, right. But this is like scientific stuff. I mean, here it is, right here. I mean, there's a whole plethora of information on this. The 70s were a heck of a time for this stuff to be coming out.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and we have a lot of people in the chat room that are like, yeah, I'm K-Ultra, I want to hear about mind control. Just recently in the trial for my niece's murder, they were talking about mind control and hypnosis and different things like that, and how just watching your television, you know how you're watching it, and your kid's like, Mom, 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 or for you, Dad, 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 Dad. And you're not hearing anything because you're just like focused on that television or whatnot. And I've had my older daughter, Nova, come to me and be like, I talked to you, I asked you about this, you didn't respond, so I just did this anyways. And I was like, I don't remember that, but maybe I was just zoned in. That's what I always call it. I was zoned in or zoned out on the television. And as a parent, you kind of learn to get rid of some noises and retain others. Just a way of focusing, but it can be true that perhaps they're trying to control us or hypnotize us through the television, and then there's been the talk about messages coming through, subliminal messages, and trying to control us in that way.
Yeah, here's another one. This comes from, I think it's Catherine Sullivan, one of the mind control subjects. She recalls that mind-controlled subjects were frequently programmed through music, including chords, sequences of notes and lyrics. Music by the Beatles was used more than any other type, but also Pink Floyd used in NASA time programming, and The Who, especially portions of the rock opera Tommy. Movies were also used as programming devices, with the most common being Wizard of Oz and Disney's Alice in Wonderland. I mean, then we hear what Lady Gaga singing about Ra, the god Ra, Ra, Ra. He was one of those rituals, or the main god. I think a god or goddess. I don't know too much about, like I said, that part of it. What spirits or entities these people claim to be in contact with. Was it Beyonce says Sasha takes over, Nicki Minaj says I forget, Roman or somebody is her alter ego. So they admit to being possessed in one way or another.
And there's actual video and photographical evidence of this. Like, they'll be going out on stage, and for 1 second it'll be them, and then all of a sudden they flash into this other being, and like their eyes turn black. And if you're not looking closely, or if you're in the crowd, you're not going to notice it. But when you look at these videos zoomed in, you're like, holy shnikes, like, what the heck is happening? Is that really a demon taking over, or is that somebody with some sort of equipment editing it and making it seem that way?
I think it could be, if you want to get really into the rabbit hole, I think it would be a combination of both. Now, here in my notes, Jim Keefe goes through the various different levels of programming, and let me give you their definitions, because I think it's really important, because a lot of people just don't get to hear it. I don't really hear other researchers. I'm sure people mention it, but I'll just get right into it. It says the first level is called alpha. It's generalized mind control, the base level of programming of the subject, and characterized by augmented memory and the splitting of the mind into left and right brain divisions. Beta programming is apparently programming of sexuality and the destruction of moral inhibitions. Gamma is a level providing mind control system protection involving deception and misdirection. Delta is the assassin programming level and includes killers trained to perform ritual sacrifice. Theta is termed the psychic killer level. According to Hammond, I had never in my life heard those two terms paired together. I had never heard the word psychic killers put together, but when you have people in different states, including therapists, inquiring and asking, what is theta, and patients say to them psychic killers, it tends to make one a believer that certain things are very systematic and very widespread. This comes from their belief in psychic sorts of abilities and powers, including their ability to psychically communicate with mother and including their ability to psychically cause somebody to develop a brain aneurysm and die. And lastly, omega is the level of programming dictating self-destruction and is intended to cause the subject to commit suicide when they are interrogated or begin therapy. So how many times have we heard, lone shooters, suicide?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, the playbook is the same for the last God knows how many years. And, the general public is just, going along with their beer, porn, and football like, it's any other day.
Well, we have about a minute left. Amanda or Robert, did you have anything to add to that?
Just when you were talking about the subliminal messages, even not just in the actual television program itself, but I don't know if anyone's noticed all the recent record covers. It's just full of all this symbolism. Masonic symbolism, Illuminati symbolism. It's all over the place. I find when my mom wants to show me a new program she's watching, it's just all over the place that I'm seeing different, the triangles and things like that. And with Sasha, Beyonce going into Sasha and all that, I feel like it's also what they're doing on stage, not just the pictures of them flashing over, but it seems like they're doing rituals on stage.
Exactly. It's certainly not a Ramones concert, that's for sure. And I always say that because those guys 1, 2, 3, 4 into the next song, and then that's it. Just being a little funny, but you're right. These performing full-blown rituals, on Super Bowl halftime, these big elaborate costumes, and you think all for one song, really? I mean, and think of all the time and preparation
I hate to cut you off, but you guys, we got to go to our second break. We'll be back right after these messages. You guys don't go anywhere.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live, and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, we own the night.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month, where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Tonight's show and topic of discussion do not necessarily reflect the opinion of Spaced Out Radio, SOR Media, or its hosts. Listener discretion is advised. It's hour number 3 of Spaced Out Sunday with host Tessa N Thomas. Follow Tessa on Twitter at Tessa TNT. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now back to the Rocky Mountains. Here's Tessa.
Welcome back, guys. It's so great to have you on tonight, listening to our conspiracies, hauntings, and everything in between. I know we've mostly been focusing on conspiracies, but we're going to pick back up with the MK Ultra, as we didn't finish off with that, and we're going to go back to Jason.
Okay. This next information, I think a lot of the people get the names of some of the names. Now, these are just some of the programs. These are certainly not all, but some of the programs mixed up with their objectives and what they were for. Like MK Ultra is always tossed around, but there's a few others. And according to the congressional record in '77 by the Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research of the Committee on Human Resources, this is what each program was described as. MK Delta was apparently the first project established by the CIA in October of 1952 for the use of biochemicals in clandestine operations, but it may have never been fully implemented operationally. Next was MK Ultra, and this was a successor to Project MK Delta, and it was established in '53 and terminating sometime in the late '60s, probably after '66. And this program considered various means of controlling human behavior, and drugs were only one aspect of this activity. MK Naomi, this project began in the '50s and was terminated in 1969. This may have been a successor to MK Delta. Its purpose was to stockpile severely incapacitating and lethal materials and to develop gadgetry for the dissemination of these materials. MK Search was the successor to MK Ultra, which began in '65 and was terminated in 1973. The object was to develop a capability to manipulate human behavior in a predictable manner through drugs. I like this name. It's kind of funny. MK Chickwit. Sounds like a gum. MK Chickwit. Yeah. MK Chickwit. WIT. This was apparently part of MK Search program, and its objective was to identify new drug developments in Europe and Asia and to obtain information and samples. MK Optin, this was also apparently a part of MK Search project. Its objective was to test the behavioral and toxicological effects on certain drugs in animals and humans. And I know in another, somewhere in my notes, I have a whole list of the different universities that were distributed funds for MK Ultra research. And one of those was, I know there's a big lawsuit in Canada going on right now with Ewing Cameron in one of the hospitals over there. But that hospital was named in these documents and how much money this hospital was receiving. I think, they gave money to Harvard, companies that didn't exist, dummy funds and things like that. They gave money to Johns Hopkins University. Just all over the country, they gave grant money to colleges for these types of programs.
Yeah, it's super crazy. But people are still interested in it. Like, what is it exactly? What exactly is it doing? And it's just crazy to hear the ins and outs of it. And is it really what's going on?
Well, I like I said, I recommend the book Mass Control Engineering Human Consciousness, because that goes into this really, really well as far as information, citing sources and things like that. And it's by Jim Keith. Like I said, I think it came out in 1998. It was one of his last books written.
So did you guys want to talk any more about MK Ultra, or should we move on to other things?
I mean, I'm not going to go on, but I could. Like I said, it's just, I don't want to give some other topics a chance if you'd like.
Okay, well, we got plenty of time. If there's any other key points that you feel that we should hear about it, I mean, I'm more than willing to let you do that.
Well, I understand. It's just what the audience wants. If they want more MK Ultra, hey, great, fine. If not,
yeah, everybody seemed very excited to hear about it. So anything else that you can share with us on that note?
Yeah, One of the things that we might want to do. Does anybody remember the Goals 2000 for the academics, school and education and things like that? I'll just read this thing about it. The goals for Project 2000 and its educational offshoots emphasize life adjustment skills, family life education, and environmental stewardship. Academic study is de-emphasized while cooperative attitudes are mandated, including attitudes which significantly seem to bolster a eugenics agenda in the mind of the child, such as attempting to normalize homosexuality and playboyism and abortion as a form of birth control. So I think that, I'll touch lightly on it, and I don't want to offend anybody out there, but I think that the gay agenda has been used also, and these people have been used by these various governmental entities for their own agendas. Because let's be honest, homosexuality does not promote reproduction. It's a form of population control, and I think that in short that it's being tolerated because, like I said, it's people who are same-sex couples, they don't procreate. So there you go. Probably a very simplistic point of view, but nonetheless, those people are being used, unfortunately, and I feel bad, for them. I don't have anything against, homosexuals or anything like that. It's just the point of that type of, that part of society of culture being used, in mind control, I guess, examples. Like I said, the Georgia Guidestones. Jack Mackerel always loves the Georgia Guidestones. To get the world population down to, what is it, 500 million or something like that? I can't remember quite.
Yeah, I believe it's 500.
Yeah, 500,000, right? Or is it 500 million? I think it's 500.
I think it's 500. I can't remember. We should know this, but like I said, nobody knows who erected those things either.
Yeah.
Or paid for them, But, the signs are there. It's like hidden in plain sight. If you want to hide a pair of socks, where do you hide them? In a drawer full of other socks. So, like that kind of thinking. So.
Well, Shar in the chat room was asking, how are they doing it now, as far as, I guess, the mind control and such?
Oh, there's various forms of it. There's the soft mind control from, the television. Your phone, Philip K. Dick was right. Your phone does spy on you now. Dr. Johnny Fever, there are the phone cops, so to speak. I know I'm being a little facetious, but, it's being done every day. You're inundated with it.
And Christopher said it's 500 million, so that's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure, because I wasn't sure if it was just the United States, as that's found in Georgia, or if it's the world. But yeah, 500 million. Shar is also asking, what about... Oh, go ahead, Amanda. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, and the guy who chose to have that erected was named R.C. Christian.
Oh, okay. Now, Shar asked, what about low income and mentally ill? Meaning what exactly?
Yeah, possibly.
Like the mentally ill being...
possibly they don't have a cell phone or other ways that they would be watching us. The Xbox Connect, like your flat screen television that now has like a little video monitor in it, supposedly. Different things like that low income people or mentally ill people aren't afforded, as the rest of us are.
Oh. Well, well. See, it's not my point of view. See, what SOR Cat said. It's funny though, listening to people not quite in the LGBTQ community have misconstrued ideas. It's not my ideas. These are from their documents. I mean, even Bill Cooper covered it in the early 90s in his book, from various documents or whatever. So, but like I said, it's nothing against those types of people at all. It's just like any other group being used and pitted against each other. What do? They try to pit, straight people against the homosexual crowd. And that's, they want us fighting.
And different races and different belief systems.
Yeah.
And I was saying that not too long ago to a Vietnam vet. I'm like, I cannot remember a time when we were so divided. And he's like, Vietnam. Yeah, that was another time back in that time. But these days, like, it hasn't happened in so long until now. We're so divided on so many different levels. And it's just insane to see.
Yeah, well, they being the controllers of this country, have had this country in their control, in my opinion, since the assassination of JFK. You know, think of all the people that were, not just in America, but politically, that were assassinated or killed in the world around that time. Think of the changes they could have affected. You know, how different would it have gone if, JFK would have lived? One of the craziest conspiracy theories I ever heard about JFK was the reason why they killed him was using time travel technology. They found out that he inadvertently caused the nuclear wars. They'd go back and kill him to stop it. I mean, that's how far out it's gotten.
Yeah, that's insane. I don't even see that, but okay. I think it's because he was reaching for something that they didn't want. It would not pad their pockets and help them the way they wanted to, so they got rid of him because he did have a strong message and he did have this awesome will, and things were looking bright and shiny, and they just had to get rid of it because he was not on the same agenda as the rest of them. That's how I feel.
They looked at him working. I think they worked at him working with Khrushchev as being friends as a communistic move. I can kind of see that point of view, but if you don't want to go to war, and if you want to avoid, especially nuclear war at that time, Bay of Pigs and whatnot, the last thing you want to do. And I think JFK knew deep down that I think he knew Khrushchev really wasn't going to do anything. That's why I don't want to say he really wasn't worried about it, but I don't think that made him a communist because he would want to get along with Russia. Look at now; they're still perpetuating it with Russia. Try to say Russia's involved in this and that. I mean, look at the election tampering. It's been going on since the 70s. People like Mae Brussels and Penn Jones and these guys, they were talking about it then. So to say that this is a new subject about the voter booths being controlled is nothing new. It's new to this generation. This new crop of kids who were born. But
if you look back at Richard Nixon and JFK and all these other people, and you look at Trump and all the stuff that he's doing and getting away with, I'm like, had that been Nixon, he would have been out already. Had that been JFK, he would have been shot already. Like, there's so many things that he's doing and getting away with. I think it was Amanda shared the other day, or maybe it was my friend Sadra, I can't remember, but it had this picture of the panel for the president and all these people that have been fired, and there's like 3 people left out of the original panel, and they're like, season finale coming soon. Right?
Yeah, that was me.
That was a very good one, I must say.
I don't dislike or like Trump. I mean, I don't like any, I don't want to say like, but politicians were given a choice of a lesser of 2 evils. And in being a businessman, he's probably trying to run the country like a business, which rightfully so. It's, corporation, nation states, public, corporate policy usually trumps federal law, which I don't understand in that one. I mean, I could write a book alone about all the, violations that employers have imposed on me over the years. I mean, I've witnessed where employers have demanded you clock out and then continue working and not get paid.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Because they're not paying overtime. Yeah, if you get overtime, they're going to fire your ass. It's just crazy.
They have killed the market. Look, the livable wage has not gone up in 20 years or so, a little more. And in 1998, 99, gas was 90 cents, between 90 cents and $1 a gallon. And I was making, let's say, $12 an hour then. Nowadays, you'll be lucky if you top out between 12 and 14 if you're not in a profession. And with gas being $3 in some areas of the country now, nobody can keep up with the rate of the cost of living. I I don't know. I don't understand how people make it.
Yeah, even if you're working two or three jobs, they're still struggling. And they're wondering, what's wrong with kids these days? Well, both parents are working, so the kids are either at school or at home alone and on their cell phones with all this abuse on the internet from other people because people are just scathy on there.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like, what do you expect from them? They're being desensitized and they're learning all these things that they should not even know about. And it's because we have to work so hard to pay our bills and keep our kids fed. But at the same time, like, that's how the man gets you down. That's all I got to say on that. Like, it's just structured against us when it should be structured to build us up and help us succeed.
It's designed, how can I say, they don't want the common man getting ahead. They really don't. They just don't. I mean, I heard it put a good way. Somebody, I forget who, he got a job, he was excited, and he said, I got picked to eat. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
I got picked to eat. I mean, you know, I've been through the rigmarole myself. And these are the real issues I think a lot of people should be discussing, you know, because if you want to talk about, I use the word conspiracy, but hey, you know, they're deliberately keeping down the workforce in a lot of ways. You know, there's a reason why fast food workers want $15 an hour. I have to say, I've done fast food, and I think a lot of us have. That's hard work. You're always on the move. You're sweating. You smell like a grill. You know, you're burning your hands. It's not fun. It's hard. People are rude. They're demanding their Big Macs and their special sauce right now. They want it yesterday. So I don't blame them. And those fast food corporations make millions and millions of dollars, and there's no reason why they cannot pay a livable wage. And here's how they get away with it. They outsource, especially people like McDonald's, they outsource the use of the name. So it's a privately owned franchise, or rather privately owned McDonald's, but they're paying to use the name and all this stuff. That's how they get away with a lot of these things. You know, now, do you want the government to step in and do something? Half the camp will say yes, the other half will say no. So you're in a conundrum.
Yeah, and I just saw an ad the other day about this woman, and she's talking about how her husband works at nights. She stays at home with the kids during the day, and she's not able to run for office, which we do need working people on our level in office. And so she was trying to pass this bill to get child care paid for so she could follow her dreams of being in office and helping people on the same page as her, which we make up the majority. And she actually got it passed. And so hopefully she becomes next president or whatever. I'm hoping the best for her, but it just seems like it's structured to keep us down, keep the higher levels up, and the lower levels diminished.
I'll give you a good example of the system. The system, meaning like welfare and you know, food stamps and things like that. Last year when I was in I still kind of am, but last year I was in more dire straits than I am now. I went and I applied to the state of Maryland for child care vouchers. This is what the state of Maryland told me. You cannot get child care vouchers unless you're working, which I understand. They don't want freeloaders. I totally get that. But however, it should be a case-by-case basis because not everybody is in the same boat. Well, for me, how can I get a job to afford a sitter when there was no way for me to do it? I mean, at the time, you know, it was just me. It still is. Just me and my daughter. Her mom wasn't around at the time. And so
you worked just to pay for your child care.
Well, they denied me because I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't have a job was because I couldn't get child care. So I was going to catch 22.
Yeah.
So I said, wait a minute. I said, how can I get? I had literally no help whatsoever, and I know there's tons of people out there who've gone through the same thing, and they can relate. But I was just flabbergasted. And then on top of that, you know, the DSS worker, I said, hey, I'm going to be evicted. I can't afford this anymore. Because I've lost, you know, the other half to the relationship, so to speak. Please put me in on a list for a homeless shelter. Well, you know what? She never did. It turned out that homeless shelter had a 5-year waiting list.
Jeez.
So if it wasn't for, like, really the 11th hour of somebody who I applied to, to rent a basement apartment from, if they didn't call me back, I mean, I literally was checking into the hotel, had the room and everything, and I had no idea what I was going to do. None. I mean, literally, I was literally tossed out onto the street, and thank God that, I got the call and was able to move. But the system, in my experience, for single fathers is not work in our favor. We are looked down upon. And I know not every worker or social worker out there says that's true or thinks that's true, but in my experience, let me tell you, you're a single dad? Ooh. I am ostracized in the community around me. I'm the only single dad, I'd say, usually at any school function or picking up my daughter from daycare.
Mm-hmm.
And I am avoided by the single moms like the plague.
Like, what's wrong with this guy? How come he hasn't ran off like all the rest of the guys?
Yeah, I don't know, but I didn't mean to get into a tangent. But these are the issues. These are real social issues that affect, I think, everybody on some certain level.
It really does.
And they should be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I am glad that we got on that because it is a real issue. And as far as being a single father, there's more and more laws going for you guys and to help you guys. But at the same time, like, not everybody's on the same page. Colorado's pretty cool, but I mean, Arizona and other places, it can be very difficult. And like you're saying, you got that stigma against you. Like, people are like, ew, what's wrong with this guy?
Especially me having a daughter, because, when it comes to, discipline and spankings, oh my God. Look, let me tell you, you have, and I'm sure there's single moms out there and dads who had the same thing. People telling them how to raise their kids, the comments from the peanut gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whoa, man, slow down over here. But, yeah, I didn't mean to dominate everything. Amanda's just sitting over there twirling her thumbs. I'm just kidding.
I'm so glad all you guys are here. But, we got 9/11 coming up, the anniversary of, and I wanted to get on that topic. And I know Amanda and you guys are very knowledgeable in this. So, yeah, there's different variations of what actually happened that day. A lot of people are thinking it was a fire from the airplane. Other people are thinking it was bombs from the government. And then on another note, we're hearing that it could be some sort of energy weapon as far as, radio waves against this building, because when it collapsed, most of it went into dust instead of being rubble, and this heaping pile of rubble, as it's falling, you can even see this one brick in the very front of it. It's falling and falling and falling, and as it descends, it's nothing anymore. It's just dust. So it kind of makes you wonder what exactly is going on with that. What are your guys' thoughts on it? And then I'll get into this recording that I queued up for it.
Well, if Robert wants to start, maybe we could talk about, because this incident for us is the same as where were you when JFK was killed? Well, let's discuss. Robert, where were you when you first heard the news?
Well, I was sitting at the computer in this very room. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and I was playing Mahjong or one of those other games that was on Yahoo Chat at the time. And
I remember that.
I was talking to people on Yahoo, and one of the friends from Melbourne, she said, turn on the news now. So I turned on the news, and we were seeing the replay of the first building being hit by the plane. And about 3 to 5 minutes after that, we saw the second plane coming in and bang, straight into the second tower. So, yeah, I was down here watching it live as it happened. And, I didn't get much sleep that night. I was up probably about 4 a.m. watching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's late
You're
for
up
you
all
guys
night.
over there. Yeah, and you can't, how can you go to sleep with that going on? You just can't, and it is so mind-boggling. But, Amanda, what are your thoughts on that? What were you doing,
so many
and how did you see it at first?
I was getting ready for Bible study, actually, and I normally didn't listen to any kind of radio or anything like that, but I had the news on for some reason, and I was curling my hair. And when they announced that the first plane had hit, I had curled half of my hair, and then after that, I just, was tuned in. So I remember as soon as the second plane hit, I immediately knew that we were at war, and I went and woke everybody up in the house, like, we're at war. And all over the news and radio, they were announcing all sorts of crazy things. Here in Phoenix, they were saying that there were planes over the buildings down here, and they were targeting government buildings. So we were kept, it was my senior year of school, and we were kept home from school. And just stayed and watched the news all day. It was absolutely terrible.
I remember I was...
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, go ahead. No, just if she has anything to add, go right ahead. I want to cut in.
Well, let's go with where we were on that day, and then we'll move on from there. So let's get your point on that, Jason.
Well, that morning I fell asleep with the TV on, and I actually had it muted in my bed. So I woke up at about, about 6. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning, and maybe a little after. I knew it was after the first plane hit the tower because I look over and on the ticker it said plane hits World Trade Center. And I was so tired because in those days I was partying and staying out late, and then, I had a day job at the courts. I worked in security at the Superior Court downtown in Phoenix. So I got up, I took a shower. By the time I got out of the shower, the second plane hit. So I called my mom and I said, hey, I want to turn on the news and record on the VCR the news, what's going on today. So when I went to work, the whole court building was in a panic. And same as you, Tessa, they were stating that planes were over Phoenix and they were coming towards Phoenix. And I'm sorry, I literally laughed out loud right there in the middle of everything. And people just looked at me and they said, why are you laughing? I said, we are not going to be attacked. Nobody cares a rat's ass about Phoenix. And they just looked at me. And they said, how can you say that? I said, oh, come on. I was just, because right away I knew something was rotten in Denmark. You can't have 4 planes being simultaneously hijacked all at once, getting through airspace, NORAD not being scrambled, and all this other crap. Right away, that was our generation's, JFK thing, the Pearl Harbor, and it really ticked me off because I knew right then in that moment that everything that I had been researching and conspiracy theories and all that stuff was going to come true, and people that were making fun of guys like us and researchers like us in years to come were going to eat their words. And I remember having the foresight back then thinking, I wonder what it's going to be like, 10, 15 years from now, what the story will morph into. And immediately I started recording. I think I had 3 VCRs going on 3 different televisions, 2 at home and 1 at my mom's, and recording everything from that day, all the footage. And for me, it was just, I just saw the end of America and freedom, basically. I'll be honest. Slowly it's happened. There were 292 million Americans when that happened. Now there's, over 300 million? And so almost a whole new generation has cropped up, living, or kids, people who were kids back then, 2, 3, 5 years old. Now, I would love to see a modern textbook about 9/11 and see what it says.
Yeah, they don't do that. They, like the news footage. At first we had the original footage coming out. You could see people jumping out of windows, even taking their clothes off and jumping out, and people are wondering, why is this happening? They're not even on the floors that are burning. But as it went on, they were just doing the edited replay of footage and not letting us see everything that was happening. But it kind of, like, I just got this new information today about these new studies by Dr. Judy Wood, who was, she's got so many degrees in, physical things, and she was actually into directed energy, and she was talking about how it wasn't because of the fuel from the plane, it wasn't a controlled demolition, it was this thing that had been created back in Tesla's day, trying to get these new integrated tools in there, and it actually focused at just specific locations. It can cause things to just turn into ash, which when you're watching it fall and you're waiting for all this rubble to build up, there's just this little bit of rubble, nothing like the building was in the first place, and it was, you could see this piece of big old brick falling and just turning to ash, and it's not on fire, it's just turning to ash, not colliding with anything, just turning to ash. And so it originally started with Tesla, from what I was seeing on this, but then it was picked up by Dr. Judy Wood. And what I'm going to do right now is play her thing, and then we'll get back on that. So I got to take my mic off here because I don't have this downloaded, but I really do want to play it for you guys. And I have it queued up at a certain point because there's a lot of it that's about her tour over there in the UK and everything, which really doesn't deal with what we're talking about, but here we'll pick up on what she's saying that she believes happening with all of her diplomas and degrees and whatnot. So here we go with Dr. Judy Wood.
You're saying is that somebody already has this technology and they've used it
and demonstrated to us.
Yeah, demonstrated to us in the form of a weapon.
Yes.
Which we will come on to. So you describe it as a non-kinetic weapon. Can you just for viewers, describe the difference between kinetic and non-kinetic?
Well, kinetic being like heat. Nuke bombs have a whole tremendous amount of heat. Or regular bombs, chunks go flying, break things into parts. Missiles, something moves and hits something else. Wrecking balls, something pounding on something or heating something up. But there are other types of weapons that don't heat something, but affect it. What I mean by directed energy, the energy is, in the most general sense, it's directed geographically only to affect this particular place and not across the street. But also, the energy is directed as in giving it instructions what to do differently than energy normally does.
All right, so it's not just directed in terms of its position, it's directed in terms of its instructions, that's what you're saying?
Yes.
Because the equation that I remember from physics of a kinetic energy weapon would be the energy in a cricket ball. If you throw a cricket ball, that's a kinetic energy weapon, is a half mv squared, which is a half times the mass of the cricket ball times its velocity squared, gives you the amount of energy in that energy weapon, because a cricket ball is an energy weapon, really.
We're sending somebody in croquet, you get two balls, you put your foot on one, and you whack this one, that one takes off.
So this is non-kinetic.
Right.
Right. Now, does that mean it's electromagnetic, or can you explain what it actually is?
It's various things. What I call it is magnetic electrogravitic nuclear reactions. It involves magnetism, electricity, gravity, and it causes nuclear reactions.
Right. And one analogy that people can think of is their microwave oven as being an example of directed energy.
Yeah, or lasers.
Or lasers.
Those are line of sight, or I guess microwave sometimes is in a region, but this is a combination of different types of energy that create different effects and interact.
Right. Now let's just summarize the reason why you state that the towers didn't hit the ground.
No, they didn't. They didn't burn up, nor did they slam to the ground, but turned into dust in midair. And we know that because if they slammed to the ground, we'd have a pile of rubble left over. If they slammed to the ground, the seismic signal would have shown that, which it didn't. And if they slammed to the ground, they're actually built in the Hudson River, 70 feet below the water table at bedrock. And so there's this dike around them. You get 2 500,000-ton buildings and another 250,000-ton building, slam it down, you're going to bust the water retaining wall.
And there's a whole lot of other evidence concerning things that were made of metal that were isolated from the ground, such as cars that had all of these bizarre effects that you wouldn't have expected if two buildings had collapsed through a conventional means.
The effects were material specific.
All right. Now, normally you would focus strictly on the physical evidence, and you have done so far in your book and in your lectures. But this time in this tour, you're speaking more about the cover-up of this information and how that cover-up has been orchestrated and the psychology behind it. Can you just explain that for us, Judy?
Yes, the buildings turn to dust in midair. If you look at it, you can see that. Why do so many people not see it? Why was nearly the entire world fooled that day? And in order for people to see what happened, they have to figure out how to get around this. And I found there's 3 things that keep them from seeing it. Number 1, problem-solving skills. Number 2, groupthink or peer pressure. And number 3, they're terrified by the implications. But of the problem-solving skills, I've said this before about the importance of first determining what happened before you can determine how it happened. You have to determine what it is, and that before you can determine who did it or why they did it and so forth. And what I've discovered is one of the easiest ways to run a cover-up and to keep the cover-up safe is to get folks to focus on how it happened. Because if you start out with how it happened before you've determined what it is, you're assuming what it is. So you're solving an imagined problem, not a real problem. You haven't defined the problem. When I teach in statics class, first thing you have to teach students is to make the problem statement. Here's the problem statement. Here's what you're looking for. Here's the information given. Draw a line, what you're going to look for. Draw a line, go about solving it. And you have to define that problem before you can solve it. Once you define it, it gets a lot easier to solve. And few people do that. So if you get people to focus on how it was done, they go round and round arguing about opinions of whatever, and they never will solve it.
And they will create contention within that as well. I've actually, in my talks, called it a phony bone of contention, which is contention around something which has a flawed assumption within it.
And it goes round, 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 round.
Okay. All right. And I know that Andrew Johnson has spoken at length and written a book about the 9/11 cover-up.
Yep. Another thing that I often talk about, if you don't like the lie behind door number 1, I'll show you lie behind door number 2. You don't like that one, lie behind door number 3. Whatever to keep you from looking at the open field behind you.
And you talk about the psychology of denial because the implications are just too grotesque for people to face. And I'm actually experiencing that with some British members of Parliament that I've been writing to about another thing, which is this.
Okay, so I'm going to cut it off right there because they're going into other stuff, but what she's talking about is this weapon and what she called it. I had to shorten it for the description on the show because it wouldn't allow me to put it in, but it's called, and this stems from Tesla, it's called magnetic electrogravitic nuclear reaction. And it's where they focus these beams of radiation onto onto a certain point, and it doesn't affect the buildings around it, but it affects these certain buildings. And so I found that very interesting. Another thing that I found interesting on this was the fact that not only did Dr. Judy Wood die mysteriously, but 36 other people died shortly after she had written her book. One website is Where Did the Towers Go? That's the name of the book, but wheredidthetowersgo.com. And of course you can look at her website, drjudywood.com, and it shows so many interviews, and you can even read articles and everything about this. But 36 people died, including Tesla's great-great-grandniece. And these are all people that were focusing on directed energy and trying to explain this to people, and they were all taken out. And it seems like a small portion of people compared to the lives that were lost that day in 9/11, but it does make you scratch your head and think what exactly is going on. And we've seen these cover-ups and what's going on with that.
Yeah. like I said, real evidence is suppressed, and being a researcher is probably, a serious one, a good one, like Dr. Judy Wood. I mean, it's a very dangerous profession to be in, I think. You have to be very careful.
And that guy that we were talking about earlier, John Hutchison, was also involved in this and also died mysteriously, but he was talking about, well, he was a self-taught electric engineer, and he was talking about how using this technology, it would bend and twist metal like in 9/11 when you see these iron pillars twisted, and the pile was said to actually be glowing, not because it was on fire, but because of the radiation that was there. You could see the firefighters and stuff working around it. They weren't wearing their gear because it was not hot from the fire, it was glowing from the radiation. So there's many different awesome points that they have here, and I'm looking forward to looking into her site more because I've heard the whole thing about the government taking the gold that was in the lower levels of these buildings, and who knows where they put it, but supposedly it was planned to demolition it, which the way the building fell straight down instead of over this way or over that way, it fell straight down. It kind of seemed like a demolition, but when you hear what Dr. Judy Wood was saying, it totally makes sense, because where is the rubble? Like, there's hardly anything left of these buildings, and the whole thing wasn't burning. It was just these few floors where the airplane had hit. And a lot of people talk about, the Project Bluebeam, or it was a missile that hit, and they just made it look like an airplane on TV. I don't think that's true, because you see where, the wing supposedly hit. According to Dr. Judy, the wing was not even strong enough to make that line in the building. So what made that? I don't know. It's just crazy and weird and so hard to wrap my mind around. What are your thoughts?
I did look at her research, and I definitely do think that she has some really interesting point of views, but I look to the actual, the actual proof that was found after the World Trade Center collapse. And, physicist Stephen E. Jones, he worked for Brigham Young University. He actually collected traces of the rubble from Building 7 and found particles of supercharged nuclear nanothermite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could also be a reason for why there wouldn't be the rubble, because if there was a military demonstration that was done, and it's actually still available on YouTube, where an I-beam, just like the beams that were used to construct the World Trade Center, they painted thermite onto it, put it in a powdered form into paint, and painted it onto the I-beam. And it not only did it cause the molten effect where the steel was melting, but then also the traces of it did turn into ash and disappear. So I think that also, there's actual proof that is something that occurred.
Yeah, and that does show, like she was saying, I'm going to shorten the version of the name of this and just call it MEGNR. And like she was saying, it was radio waves, and it kind of acts like a nuclear explosion, but it's just more concentrated. And being that he found those things in the dust that he collected, kind of gives credence to what she's saying. Making me think. Jason, what's your thoughts?
Well, when I watched him fall, I turned to my roommate and I said, "Why did they blow up the building?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "They blew up the building." I said, "Look." Rewound the tape. "Look, I blew it up." And then, of course, the fires brought down the building. So I don't believe that. Fires doesn't reduce a building to dust.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Tesla, he did, in fact, invent something called the earthquake machine. I forget what year he tested it out, but he caused some problems, shaking. I forget where he did it. I don't know if it was New York or what city, but he did this test, and it literally shook the building on its foundation. So I think this could maybe be a ramped up version of that.
And that's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that she had mentioned, because I had listened to several of her interviews, she was saying that the earth around this area shook for 8 minutes after. So that would kind of explain that as well.
Yeah, that's a Tesla technology thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hey, if a guy is smart enough to be able to screw light bulbs into the soil and have the light bulb light up to pull the energy out of basically the air, and all you have to do is, I'm very Reader's Digesting version of this. All you have to do is essentially set up antennas every so many feet or whatever to pull the energy out of the air and channel it. Like I said, I think I stated it before, I don't know if it was on this show or whatever, but J.P. Morgan was not in the business of selling antennas. He wanted to know how you're going to charge the people for electricity. Where are you going to put the meters? And Tesla was like, what meters? Oh, this is for free. J.P. Morgan didn't like that. So, I joke a little bit. I blame J.P. Morgan because, if he wasn't in the way, we possibly could be having free electricity. That's the thing. What gives the electric company the right, not some will say the government or whatever, but basically what to charge us? I mean, when they first turned it on, I think in the 1892 Chicago the exposition, the Columbian Exposition, I think that's, maybe I'm getting two events, but I know it was in 1892 that Tesla and Edison were in a race to see who could light the World's Fair first.
Mm-hmm.
And Tesla won.
Yeah.
And Tesla's AC system was used. And, I think Tesla was a lot smarter than Edison in a lot of ways, but, Edison had the money. He had the backing of those types of corporate people then. That's
corporations messing stuff up again.
I think Tesla actually dug ditches when he first came to this country as a job.
Robert, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just found some information on the earthquake machine. It says here that in 1897 the device was ready, and in 1898 he supposedly managed to oscillate his laboratory at 48 East Houston Street, New York, enough that alarmed neighbors called the police and ambulance, fearing that an earthquake had happened. Tesla later explained that this principle to reporter Alan L. Benson, or Besnon, B-E-S-N-S-O-N, who published in February 1912 an article about Tesla's resonator in the World's Day magazine. It then goes on to say how he tested it on a building that had no stonage around it at that point, and the steel workers came to the ground panic-stricken, believing there had been an earthquake. So, yeah, it worked apparently.
Yeah, and just as with Tesla, after he died, many of his, he had all these chests full of all of his workings and evidence and such. And all of it was taken except for 3 things. And I just heard from Jack Mackerel again, and he was saying John Hutchison is actually still alive, but he went out of town, and when he came back, all of his research was mysteriously missing. So there goes another conspiracy.
Yeah, and then Ronald in the chat room said that $3 billion in gold was taken out of the tower's basement. But yeah, that's true. There was an eyewitness, I forget who, one of the many research clips and interviews that I have seen. She said that think of the Die Hard movie, Bank Heist. I mean, what better way to heist money at the time? Tell people that there's, you had witnesses. The bombs were going off. The firemen were telling people around that a bomb was going to explode or the building was going to come down. Eyewitnesses of bombs going off. You could hear bombs going off from people recording across the bay, and footage that later came out. What about that? You had eyewitnesses. Bombs were going off, during the whole the whole thing. So that's a great time to pull a $3 billion gold heist. And actually now, if you look on eBay, you can buy gold and silver coins that were recovered from Ground Zero. It'll actually say it on what they call slab. When they grade coins, they slab them.
But when they originally came through with all of their footage and their news media stuff, they were saying that there was no gold or anything found, it was all stored down there. But other people are saying that there are eyewitnesses that saw black vehicles, like many of them, coming through and possibly picking this gold up and taking it somewhere else because they knew what was going to happen.
Right. If there was no gold down there, then how could you go on eBay right now and buy an American Gold Eagle from Ground Zero that was supposedly recovered? It states it right on there. Same thing with the American Silver Eagle. You can buy them on eBay. It's a marketing gimmick, no less, up in the coin community. But nonetheless, a piece of history come from the 9/11 vaults. So there you go. There's like, in an odd way, proof that there was money down there, actual gold and silver, because you can buy them on eBay. Now a lot of people out there will say, yeah, right, it's eBay, you can't trust it. But there are two top major grading companies for coins. Think of it as, when you go authenticate an antique, at Christie's or Sotheby's or something, that's what PCGS and NGC, the two companies do. They authenticate these antique coins, modern and antique, and people had sent in the recovered gold and silver coins to be graded, and they had the designation, recovered from Ground Zero.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it's funny how they always say one thing and then another thing comes up. It's like you're just contradicting yourself, and they're hoping the sheeple won't pick up on it, but there's those of us out here that are seeing what's going on and seeing the rhetoric and the controversy, and it's just crazy ridiculous. But we're down to our last minute, so we'll start with Sleepy, and then we'll move on to Robert, and then Amanda, you guys can tell us websites or ways to contact you. If you don't have websites, you can just say your goodbyes, and then we're gonna go off onto the closing clip.
All right, well, if you want to start, Amanda, I don't mind. Whoever wants to go.
No, you know what? Go ahead, because I'm actually pulling up my contacts.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll spell my email address if anybody wants to get a hold of me. It's Shemya Casefile, SHEMYA Casefile, all lower caps, one word, at Outlook.com. I don't have a website.
Well, you'll get one someday. Robert, what about you?
Well, I can be found on Facebook under my name, Robert White, or you can go through Borg, BORG 202 at hotmail.com.
Awesome. Mander?
I am on YouTube, and it's just my name, so that wasn't hard. Amanda Thomas.
That's not hard at all. Well, thank you, Jason, Robert, and Amanda, so much for being on the show tonight. It was so wonderful having you guys on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
If you guys want to hold on, we always do the after party, but I'm going to do my outro now. And thank you, everyone, in Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, and wherever else you are listening in the universe tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening, and it was my pleasure, literally and figuratively, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend on spacedoutradio.com. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light to all my space cases out there. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we own the night. You guys have a wonderful week. Don't work too hard, and I look forward to seeing you back here next weekend. You guys have a great night. It was so awesome having you here and seeing your input on the chat room. Sorry we didn't take any calls tonight. We just got so wrapped up in these conspiracies and such, and I still have a whole page full of more conspiracies that we were going to go through, but you guys come back next week. It's going to be great, and we will be taking your calls. You guys have a wonderful evening and the rest of your week. Good night, and sleep tight. Don't let the Allens bite.